Okay, John. I mean, please feel free to take this wherever you want. Like, it can go as serious or as ludicrous as you want. But
Perfect.
obviously, you. Well, actually, let's just start with the origin story. What is the John Poveromo origin story?
Oh my God. We don't this I don't know. I mean, it's gonna put people to sleep. So I'll no, I mean as far as stand-up goes, I always loved comedy and stuff. And I mean I was born in Brooklyn, raised in New Jersey. And that's not too completely ludicrous for anybody who doesn't know those two places, Brooklyn, New York, and New Jersey. It's basic. New Jersey's just more like Italians on the run. You know what I mean? Like it's not it's not too bad. If you saw The Sopranos, you kind of get the gist. And maybe a little bit of yeah. Maybe a little bit of Sopranos, a little bit of Jersey Shore, and then throw in some suburbanites in there, and that's Jersey. Yeah, it's I did that, and then stand up was just, I always loved comedians. It was a great way to deal with any since we're talking about depression, any mild kind of anxiety or depression I had when I was younger, because I was a scared kid. Like I thought the worst was going to happen all the time. I mean, I had a good childhood. Like I had fun. Even though, like my dad was like an ass and stuff, and my parents fought a lot or whatever. But for the most part, I didn't know any of that stuff. My mom did a really good job of like keeping things chill. So I didn't know, we were struggling for any kind of money, or that my dad was doing shady shit. I kind of had a bit of an idea, but also it was just, I remember family and pretty much good times, people around. Yeah. And then I remember moving around a lot, and that was because of my dad. And then, but for the comedy part, like finding comedians and stuff, especially when I was older in like middle school, comedy for me, kind of just seeing adults on stage kind of tear apart and take away everything that I thought was detrimental to myself and anybody else. And then to see them just rip it apart and make light of it was like eye-opening, and kind of changed my whole perspective about even how to deal with situations. Like, I still got sad, I still got frustrated, but for some reason in the back of my mind, even at the time, even if I thought that maybe doing comedy was impossible, I still thought, oh, this is going to be really funny someday. And I have no idea why, but that little nugget stayed in the back of my head. And I think that's why I think comedy is like one of the best coping mechanisms for anything you might be dealing with. As long as you can take it and then feed it through that kind of process, I think you can come out on the other side of it going, okay, I have these feelings about it, but also I can look at it on a lighter note and have fun with it. And maybe one day just kind of look back and be like, okay, that wasn't that scary. And you can deal with it that way. So that was the comedy thing. And plus I just loved making people laugh and dicking around. And it was another way to like help myself feel better too. But like, if my friends were dealing with anything, or if we were in a situation that was kind of fucked up, or if somebody, was genuinely scared of something, it was a great tool that I had that I could just help to make light of other situations for people. So that was just fun too. So I just learned at a young age kind of not to take everything too seriously.
Okay, so what you said, obviously there was some anxiety in there. Did the depression come later?
Yeah, that came later, because I think when situations became worse, it exacerbated what was already naturally there, which I didn't quite know. So that's why I think the depression would sneak up on me that way, because I didn't know it was as severe as it was, or something that was innate and natural to my own personality.
Yeah.
So that until shit really hit the fan, that's when I was like, wow, I'm taking this way. I always had a kind of self-awareness where I was like, whatever's going on, I'm taking this way harder than I probably should be. And I have no idea why. And then it slowly began to realize that I was probably like dealing with a bit of like depression on a level that other people may not deal with.
Yeah.
So it had to be fixed.
So in your early life, like what was what was the kind of manifestation of anxiety at that point? What was your experience there?
I thought I had a genuine fear of death, which I think all kids are curious about, but I took it to a level that was like if somebody had a cold, when like you're watching a movie and one of the main characters coughs and you're like, oh, she's going to fucking die. Like, because movies can't really show like the severity of like symptoms sometimes or whatever. So they'll use the cough to kind of mask that. They'll be like, if Kate Winslet starts choking in a movie from the based in the 20s, you're like, oh, she's got something terrible. and those fake children of hers have no idea what she's in for. Anybody that coughs into a napkin in a movie, you're like, Jesus fuck. Oh, I love that character. What's going to happen to them?
I can't say I've ever made that connection, but now I'm going to watch movies very differently.
Oh, you have to. I'm telling you. It'll change it. Like
I do like a bit of foreshadowing, It's
dude, it's always this move, man. It's the and then they look, and then there's like if there's blood, you're like, fuck.
Oh yeah, that one.
yeah. It's because it was always TB back in the day, but there's like that shit going on. But I thought like my parents were gonna die. I thought I was gonna die. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand what lifespans were, and then it went from that to like I was just terrified of like horror movies, and I was scared of dead end street signs because it had the word dead in it.
Right.
Like there was just a lot of shit that I was overly concerned about, but also stuff that like, I mean, it wasn't like that 24/7, but when those things would present themselves, I had like an irrational fear. Roller coasters, I was afraid of. It was, but I think it was all tied to death in some way because I was scared of roller coasters because I didn't understand how they worked. And I thought people were strapping me into a thing that I was going to die in. I'm not, none of it makes any sense now, but I literally
you didn't watch Final Destination, did you?
No, I was too young, but no, I was born in mid 80s. I was born in 84. So there was none of that, but I was on the Matterhorn once in Disney and I tried to jump out of it and for some reason that to me was safer than being with my mother and her sister. My aunt at the time, whatever, like as a kid, I have no idea why. It didn't make any sense. I was buckled in. We got to the top of this dumb ride at the happiest place on earth. And then there was like an abominable snowman at the top because it's the Matterhorn. It's the snowy mountain thing or whatever. And I saw it and I tried to leave and they had to like hold me down. Don't know why I thought that was a good idea.
Well, I suppose you needed to get away from that snowman.
I did. And I, for some reason, thought that my family was leading me to my death.
Do you want to fuck up a snowman?
You want to kill a kid? Take him for a ride now.
No getting off until the end. He may look really scary, but he really just wants to be your friend.
$20 for a fucking picture. of me screaming on a ride. That's great. We just wrote a whole new movie and song.
I know, yeah, with no copyright infringements whatsoever. It's
no. It's Disney. I fucking dare you. So that was that kind of stuff too. And my parents fought a lot too, so I always thought that like there was a heightened sense of I used to get like really bad stomach aches and used to be worried a lot. And then I figured out how to cope with stuff in that way too. Like when they would argue or they would fight and stuff. I don't know when I started doing this, but it was at some point I realized like, okay, well, they're going to do this. They do it a lot. This is before they got divorced, obviously. And then they just continued. They got divorced, but then they continued to meet to fight because they loved it.
That's dedication.
Scheduled time. Yeah, I know, right? They were like, are we still going to fight though?
Stay together for the fights.
Yeah. Exactly. So, I would go like, okay, well, this is a bad thing. This is going on right now, but how long did the last one last before everything was back to normal? 3 days. Okay. So today's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. By Friday, it'll be fine. And then I would like check out and do whatever I had to do and go by Friday. We're going to be fine. It's not that big a deal. And I did kind of carry that mentality with me over time.
Yeah. I suppose that is it's good that you kind of saw that pattern and were able to check out, because a lot of people would be like, okay, it's going to be like this for 3 days. That's 3 days of hell. And
yeah. And I'd be like, all right, that's not too bad. I can survive that.
At what age did you start getting into comedy? As in performing?
Performing? Yeah. I was 20 and I started doing comedy. First time I set foot on a stage, I was 20 years old.
And what was that first experience?
It was great. One of my best friends came home from college, stayed the night, and then drove in with me in the city. And I went. I think I had I still have it somewhere, but I had my first couple sheets typed out, printed out, a material with all these notes written on it over top of it or whatever. My first 5 minutes, and I kind of went over it with him a little bit. And he got to the club early with me. It was Caroline's on Broadway, which is like a big deal. And then there was like one table filled with my mom, my stepdad, a couple of their friends, and then 5 of my closest friends who could make it out. And that was it. And the rest of the room was filled with strangers, because I got lucky, because sometimes those things, people like bringer shows basically or whatever. People don't usually, they'll bring whoever, but it's not like a packed room. But I just had the right people in that class at the time or whatever, and they packed it. So it was only really like one small table of people I knew, and genuinely a full audience who didn't know who the fuck I was. So, and I got to go up somewhere in the middle of everybody else, and I ran through my set, and it was a lot of fun. I had a really good first set, which is actually like not, if you talk to anybody who's a comic or whatever, and they say their first time on stage was great, like 9 times out of 10, the next few they bomb. And I did. Like I had a great first time on stage, top of the world. Everything went well. I rode the nervous energy out, and just, my material went over well. And I even ran out of material and had a few minutes left to kill, but just kind of like riffed with the crowd, which is my normal thing. And then, and then the next time I remember going on stage, and it was at Gotham Comedy Club, and somebody had bailed, and they were like, hey, can you do 10 minutes? And I was like, fuck yeah, I can do 10 minutes, which is normal for a comic, by the way, to exaggerate the amount of time they can do early on in their career. Everybody thinks they have, whatever. And you just never turn it down. That's also how you become good too, but it's also how you kind of realize you suck and shoot yourself in the foot. So they're like, yeah, I can do 10 minutes. And I went up there, and man, did I fucking eat it. And and a couple of my other friends were there who didn't make it to the first one. And because the first one went well and I had posted it, they were like, we got to come and see you again. And I was like, hell yeah. And then they came out, and I just was kind of okay. And they were like, oh, guess this isn't going to be here. So it was a lot of like up and down after that.
Amazing. And so if with having that anxiety, and then just going from I've not performed stand-up comedy to like what was the emotion like going into that? Were you excited? Were you nervous? Was there anxiety there?
Yeah, no. I was anxious, but at that point in time, I had learned to manage most of my stuff. I had been through, like, high school kind of sucked, freshman, sophomore year. But by senior year, I had started to come out of, kind of almost come into my own in a way. Like, that's when, like, I really, really found comedy and really found, like, what I wanted to do, and was kind of, like, acknowledging some of the things I had been feeling and dealing with, and coping a lot better with stuff. So by senior year, it was almost like, when that feeling when like it's the end of something, so nothing matters anymore, but it's the greatest. It's like, it's sad, but you're also like, you're just having the best. Like, even people you didn't get along with, you're like, we did it.
Yeah.
You're like, we're out of here. And it was this. So it was just this great fucking feeling. So it was senior year, and then by my freshman year in college was brutal, and I was dating this girl from senior year through freshman year of college, and she cheated on me, and it was horrific, and we went through this. And before that, like, it was finding out, like, going through the process of finding that out, and then also realizing too that, like, I felt things on a level that other people probably weren't feeling. So like, losing like a friend for me, or even in general, or like losing like a girlfriend at the time, almost was like, it was the same thing. It was equivalent to a death, like, because that was just how I processed things emotionally. So it didn't matter that, at the time I didn't understand that, oh, you get over this. It was just this intense, crazy ass pain. And that was it. So like leading up to that, I hated the choice I made to go to college, but I didn't know what else to do. And it seemed like the thing to do. And stand-up didn't seem like a viable option. And I also wanted to be a cartoonist. So I was drawing a lot of the time, but also didn't know how to get into that. It was just the only two things I ever really wanted to do were cartooning and some kind of performing, acting, comedy, whatever. But everyone went to college. I went to college, and it seemed like what I had to do. And I was so fucking miserable. So it was that year, and then bouncing back between where she went to college, driving, trying to make that work, also still working a part-time job. I was just wrecked, dude. And also like the self-awareness of like, I knew at the time, what that separation meant. Like, you know what I mean? It was something I didn't want to face. So like, it was always that way for me. It was always like, my friends always kind of described me at that point in time, like older than I was in reality. You know what I mean? Like just, I just thought differently. And so, but it was like still being the age I was, and then still also going, yeah, this probably isn't going to work out. And I don't know, but still trying to make it work out. It was silly. Like I wish I could have gone back and been like, hey man, just embrace this insanity, because everyone around me was breaking up, falling apart, doing stupid shit. And instead of just embracing it and kind of riding it out, I tried to fight it. Like I didn't drink at all. I never drank in high school. My friends and I never really drank. I didn't like hang out with that crew. Didn't mind it if people did, but like, it just wasn't what my friends and I did. And then 21, I didn't really get into it until like getting into that kind of shit. But yeah, I just fought it, man, with like tooth and nail, and tried to be like, no, this is how it's going to go. And you know how that is when you fight the current. Sometimes you just get fucked. You just wind up drowning. You know what I mean? So anyway, so finding out that was going on. The worst part of that too, by the way, was that I couldn't prove it. So all my mental energy was going towards like, are you crazy? I don't think you're crazy. I think you know what's going on, but also not like feeling like if I had abandoned this relationship, it would ultimately be my fault. Instead of going, no, this is beneficial for your mental health and for your physical health and your general well-being, and it's just not right. Like I just didn't have the mental capability to be like, yeah, even if none of that is true, this just isn't working, and you got to take a step back. I was like, I had to make it work, So, and plus you're young and in love and stupid.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that happened. And finally that somebody on her, it was so nice though. Somebody on her, I don't even know, like her college, like in her floor or whatever, who didn't even live with her. This one girl was like, hey, we like you better than her. So we just want to let you know, she's fucking cheating on you and you shouldn't waste your time. And I was just like, thank you. I was like, oh, what a relief. Like, I wasn't even, like, at that point, I wasn't even mad. I was just like, oh, what a fucking relief that is. Now I don't have to waste any more time. And then, so that ended. And then once that happened, it was like this moment of clarity where I was like, I'm getting the fuck out of school. I'm going to try doing stand up. And I went through a period of like my friends were there for me, which is really, really nice. And, like just to try to keep me from staying in bed forever. But then I went to go do stand up. So all of that was like, even if I was like excited energy and nervous, no anxiety about performing, but just mostly like something new. And I was, moving forward and it was really kind of fun. So all that was very exciting for me. It wasn't like it was, nervous energy, positive nervous energy.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the whole thing, is that excitement and anxiety physiologically feel very, very similar.
Yes.
And the difference I say with it is it's the difference between something you're trying to run away from as opposed to something you're trying to run towards.
Yeah.
And if you are you can be, if you're nervous or anxious potentially about something that you want to be doing, first of all, you want a little bit of nerves. If you're kind of too blasé about it probably means you don't care, probably means you won't really go for it. But you do want it to, like, you know, if you're on the right path, it's actually going to scare you a little bit. It's supposed to have like that sort of bit of nerves with it. But yeah, so many people with anxiety, it's about the anxiety of what if it goes wrong, whereas excitement is what if it goes right.
Right.
And so I suppose in that situation, it's like, right, well, I'm excited to get out there. I've got this material. I can't wait to see it, you know, and maybe even, you know, anticipating the response, anticipating that. I'm similar when I go out and talk, is that I'm actually weirdly, and I used to hate this when I was a musician because I've done this forever. I'm like, I had to learn bloody mindfulness when I was much, much older because, is it written on my arm? No, it's not. There's one of the songs, my song lyrics. I think it says on this arm, if we can find some comfort in the pain that we suffer, maybe we can discover the key to life. And about 2 lines after that in that song is, because I can get so caught up in the words in my own head that I quickly forget to live my own life. I'm always waiting for the next thing, not living in real things, letting the whole world pass me by. And when I was a musician, I used to anticipate like the applause and stuff at the end of the set, and I'd be looking forward to that. And by the time that's come, I'm like, I need to go and do another set now.
Yeah,
I need to go and fuel this again now. And the exact same thing when I started getting into public speaking was like, I was excited about the possible impact, but I was also excited about the response. And it does feel in the sort of like excitement. It's how we label it. If I was to have labeled that as anxiety before I went up on that, I was a bit nervous. Yeah, definitely.
Right.
But it was excitement. But excitement is butterflies in the stomach. Excitement is your heart rate's going fast, your breathing rate's going shallow, your thoughts are rushing all over the place. Anxiety is also, there's butterflies in your stomach, your heart rate's going fast, your breathing's going fast, and your thoughts are all over the place. So the two things, it's about how we identify.
Yeah, well, and that's why, like, I feel like it's so important to experience all that stuff anyway. Like, I don't regret experiencing any of that on any level because, which is the antithesis to, I feel like, how the world is kind of cushioning itself for people now. Like, I genuinely feel for anybody who deals with, you know, any kind of anxiety about anything. But I also feel like that can be beaten. You know what I mean? Or it can be managed to a point where you can live and basically get to a point where you can do stuff with your friends or maybe go out, like whatever you actually want to do, right? But for some reason, I don't know, in the last 10 years or whatever, it's become people just accepting it, which is a good part of it too, but accepting it to the point where they're like, this is who I am and I can't do any of these things, but feeling genuinely like, that no one else should do those things either. Like if you can't, like, you know what I mean? So it's just a weird, like I hate God, somebody was complaining about the warning. I don't know if you guys have that in the UK, but like when you go to watch something now, sometimes on TV or whatever, if it's like Gone with the Wind or some kind of fucking movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they'll have like a
content warning.
Yeah. And they did it for something else that I thought was a little absurd. It was some kind of TV show or whatever it was recently. And they were like, wow, they actually put a warning in front of this that was like, you know, the views in this movie are comedic and not at all, yada, yada, or it might offend. And I thought, you know, and somebody was like, you know, there's nothing wrong with doing that, you know, for people who yada, yada. And I'm like, I think there is something wrong with it because it's not giving anybody the opportunity to experience that. If you're already putting it in their head that they may not like a thing, how the fuck are they going to know? And also, they're not going to know how to deal with something that they may not like, which is, by the way, if you don't like a show, you just turn off the TV or change the channel or whatever. So to already, like, to start a program or to start a movie with, this is going to fuck you up. I don't know who you are, but whoa, you're not going to be able to handle this. And it's like, you know, for somebody who's already dealing with shit, you know, they may not, you know, I like, and when I think about all the stuff I didn't like when I was a kid, roller coasters and fucking whatever, if I didn't have my aunt and uncle at the time or some friends who, eased me or pushed me into doing something. I mean, I may have not. I mean, I'm still not a huge fan of like crazy ass roller coasters, but now I know where my level is. I loved going to theme parks with friends. I actually liked being scared shitless on the ride because it just made it, I don't know, 10 times more fun. Some people loved them. Some people went nuts and went on I don't know if you know the one that we have in New Jersey here. Have you ever heard of King Ka? It's like, no. I think it's the world's tallest roller coaster. It's batshit fucking insane, dude. I would never.
There'll be a bigger one in Malaysia next year.
Exactly. Except it won't be a ride. It's just how they dispose of too many people in the country. I mean, that's how it goes. We've got a little overpopulation problem, and COVID didn't take care of it, so we can just shoot people off.
Content warning. No, the funny thing is, when you were talking about that, then content warnings to me, right? I like, it's a hotly debated topic within mental health whether or not we should use them. Most of the mental health industry says that we should. I'm this weirdo that says we shouldn't. And I understand why they are there, and I obviously respect. If I'm on someone else's podcast and they use them, I obviously respect that. But within my space, I refer to it as a mental health challenging or a mental health open space. And the whole thing is, I don't know. Just like that joke that's just come up then, which was great, by the way. But just like that joke that's just come up then, anything can come up on this show. Anything. Right. And anything can come up in the chat. And therefore, so as a result, the content warning is I talk about mental health openly. But the thing is, it's at the first, I was thinking when you were saying that, like the first content warnings I ever remember seeing was caution, contents may be hot. It was a physical contents. It was a coffee cup had to have that printed on it. And that was obviously in the culture in the US at the time, which was people get sued for whatever. And I thought to me, and as I was saying that, I'm like, you know what? They actually don't care about no one is doing really well. Where content warnings have originated from, especially with like TV execs and all, and for contents might be hot. It's not to protect the end user. It's to protect the producer from complaints or from lawsuits. And being sued. Yeah. So that's all those content warnings now on basically on Netflix. It's not to protect the user. It's to protect Netflix from getting getting a series of complaints coming. Because if the complaints come in, they go, well, we did put the content warning on, and you chose to do it. It's your fault. It's putting the blame back. And the thing is, if I'm perfectly honest, if you burn your mouth on a hot cup of coffee, the blame is in your court. I'm sorry. Yes. If you go, I mean, I know, like, obviously things that don't necessarily contain nuts, but I remember once seeing a Snickers bar with content caution may contain nuts, or actually may contain traces of nuts, because that was the block thing that it had put on every chocolate bar, just in case some nuts got in there and someone. But I remember at the time thinking, my Snickers bar may contain traces of nuts. I'm going to be complaining if it doesn't contain more than traces of nuts, But I think it's there for the protection of the person that's putting it out. Really, people don't, and even with streamers, I think as well as like I've said that if someone comes into my chat and is triggered by something that we're talking about, that's on me. That's not on the person that's brought it up. If my guest brings it up, that's on me for having for that. And if they want to take it up, they can take it up with me. And my standpoint is that I think mental health is a stigmatized topic, and I refuse to stigmatize it. That's my standpoint. My standpoint is that by censoring the topic, we actually contribute to the stigma ourselves. Right. I also don't think that everyone has to agree with me on that, but it's okay for people to have safe spaces and places where they can talk to mental health to a level, but that's just not how I'm going to do things. And I do think as well there is a big thing about the fact that, as you say, the worst one, the one that really ticked me off, I suppose, is I had a video called "We All Have Mental Health," and someone complained to me saying that I should have put a trigger warning at the beginning of that video to say that it talked about mental health, and I was like, the first line of the video is "We all have mental health." Would you have liked me to have said trigger warning talks about mental health instead? And the person replied saying, yes, that's exactly what I'd like you to do. And I was like, oh my God. We all have mental health. Trigger warning contains mental health. It's like, I'm sorry, we all have mental health. There you go. I've not spoken in detail about mental health yet, but I've just told you that we're going to be. It's context clues. Yeah, and I think there is, there's people out there that need them. There's people out there that just love to enforce them, that have probably no interest in it whatsoever. Whenever I've had disagreements with people about content warnings, then usually there's a few people that are like, you could make it easier for this person just by putting a content warning on. You could do this, you could do that. And I'm like, I know I could. I said, but I'm not here to make it easy for the person. That's not my job. I'm here to kind of challenge our perspectives about mental health in the aim of making change. And I think the main thing is, and this is, you'll have seen this, the same thing happen with comedy, is that it goes comedy's kind of got in the pendulum swung from everything's fair game to nothing's fair game. It's like, and with mental health, it swung from mental health is fake, which we all know not to be true.
Yeah.
But the retaliation to that, instead of is having some ground in the middle, is we're going to it's okay not to be okay. And that absolutely has to be said to some people.
Yes.
But that's not where we want people to stay. We don't want people to find it's okay not to be okay and go, that's it, I've found my little spot right now.
Yes.
I'm going to stick it over here because, and one of the main talks I do when I go into schools or businesses and stuff is called It's Okay Not to Be Okay, but Why Stop There? And it's like, okay.
That's great.
It's like, I'm going to 100% acknowledge your mental health is real. I'm going to 100% validate your feelings. And then I'm going to move into giving you some coping strategies to hopefully make them better. And that's exactly what, you were forced into a situation, and during your upbringing, you were forced into a situation of, I need to cope with this. I need to cope with the situation at home. I need to cope with my fear of death. I need to cope with, my fear of abandonment, whatever it might be. You were forced into those situations.
Right.
And the thing is, if as much as we don't ever want anybody to be forced into going through them, if we try and remove the possibility of any of those situations coming up, a person only ever knows then how to be guided and how to be sheltered. They never actually learn those coping mechanisms for themselves. And it sucks. I mean, because I've got bloody 2 teenage sons, so I don't want them to go through anything that I went through. But at the same time, I also don't want them to get to 35 having never really been through anything. And then something happens that on the global scheme is small. And again, within the mental health industry, we don't compare traumas, but it's like they've not learned how to deal with that particular conflict. They've not learned, let's say one of them has their first ever breakup at 30 or whatever. They've never really experienced that kind of pain, or they've never experienced how to deal with those type of emotions. It's by the time you're at 30, most of us have dealt with that or a variation of that a bunch of times. And as a result, we're a little bit more robust. We're a little bit more...
Right.
What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know.
Well-rounded, you're resilient, stronger. I mean, it's kind of, I never wanted to be one of those people, that I remembered growing up who just constantly bashed the younger generation. And I don't even consider myself bashing them, but I do feel like, you do need to make the same way we make comparisons about the United States and other countries, and how some things are better there and some things are better here, and some ways. Wait a minute,
you're from the States. You have to say that everything's better there. Remember?
I know we do.
That's the actual First Amendment, isn't it?
I should have an American flag background waving in a giant rock hard erection just for no reason, just because America. But fuck it, exactly. But I mean, it is kind of weird that you can compare other things. You can literally say that hey, this way of life is actually better. There's just a better rule of law. You know what I mean? Yeah. And all that other shit. And the same way we can look at other countries and go, yeah, socialized medicine is 10 times better than whatever the fuck we've got or whatever. But it's weird that the mental health thing, you can't ever say that coping with stuff and getting better, that was the goal for me always, is to go, okay, I am uncomfortable in this situation. I'd like to not be. I want to be. That was always my goal, was to be comfortable everywhere. And I pretty much, and especially because of stand-up and being in that world, and I'm sure there's other, professions and careers or things you can do to make yourself do that too. But stand-up it was a big way for me to, I'm genuinely unfazed by almost everything, for better or worse, by the way. So it's, but it
depends on the situation.
It really does. Yeah, exactly. But I think being able to still have that and still have a lot of empathy helps. But I also, it is kind of a weird thing when you see the people coming up now where they are, I'm okay. It's okay to be okay. And I'm going to leave it at that. That's where the period's going to end. And I don't want to watch things I don't want to watch. But what's crazy is I would be okay with it if they were like, hey, I don't want to watch that. And that's where I'm going to leave it. And you can try to get them into something, or you can try to get them to experience something. But at the end of the day, if they don't want to do it, they want to do it. My problem is when it goes from them not wanting to nobody should be able to. You like this thing, and I think it bothers me to the point where it's wrong. And I used to, we used to have those people when I was younger too, and we used to hang out with them. And then if they continue to be like that, we didn't fucking hang out with them anymore. Like we were like, Debbie's kind of a downer, you know what I mean? And you just didn't nobody. And then those people it's kind of funny because I feel like I was that way for a while too. I did not like parties when I was a kid because I associated them with, when my mom and dad were at parties or whatever, my dad dealt drugs and did all this crazy shit. But I was younger. I didn't understand any of that. And I would be at a party or something like that. And my mom would be bummed out and upset, but it was because of my dad. But I didn't know that at the time. So my association at the time was parties bad. I was closer to my mother. So it was just like, oh, this is I don't know why everyone seems to be having fun. I'm not. But then growing up, it was like, I don't know why I feel weird at this place. I don't know why I feel like there's a danger or whatever's going on here.
Yeah.
But I had to make a choice. I had to be like, do I want to hang out with that pretty girl, or do I want to fucking sit at home and watch TGIF? I don't want to do that. And then, or my friends are like, same way with like drugs and stuff and like pot and stuff. Like when I was a kid, because my dad did all sorts of fucked up shit, I had automatically assumed anybody did it was a terrible person and couldn't hold a job and couldn't do all this kind of crap. But growing up, I had really close friends who I found out wound up, smoking weed and all that other shit. Even people I grew up with, I think when I initially went to high school for the first time, we lived in a kind of weird area of town where like the kids were just shitty, you know what I mean? And they did all that kind of stuff. So the perception still stayed. But when I was hanging out with the smarter kids in the smarter classes, and I was in those classes and, just had a different group of friends and they were doing it too, I was like, oh, like, I don't want to lose these people. But they gave me like but it doesn't seem like that's a thing anymore. It's a very fucking black and white, clear cut line. And if it bothers you, the goal is to not make it not bother you. Yeah. And it's like, I say it all the time, but Twitter is a giant mental health issue that I think has not been addressed. It just is. I mean, Twitter used to be fun. It used to be comedians, shitting on each other and friends. Like when I was on it, I was just starting out doing stand-up or whatever. Like maybe 2009 Twitter came out. So I was, 4 years into doing stand-up or whatever. But Twitter came out and it was just goofy and didn't matter. And now the weight that comes with tweeting and what you say and who's on there. It's become this place for people with unchecked mental health issues to get together and dole out social law. And it's insane. And no one's going like, you guys need to see people or somebody or figure out how to deal with that kind of shit. It's weird.
It's not actually that weird for me, as far because I mean, my entire purpose revolves around trying to find the positive intention behind a person's actions. Mm-hmm. And when you, I mean, as you will know, with suffering with mental health yourself, one of the things that we feel is out of control. Mm-hmm. So if we feel out of control within certain areas of our life, and we yearn for control in other areas of our lives, we will find that control somewhere. So that was how my eating disorder started. I wanted control. I couldn't control the bullying and the stuff that happened to me in school, but I could control the food that I ate.
Right.
At least I thought I could, I could control whether or not I had the first biscuit or cookie, to put it in American for you. I'm going to code switch and everything, right? but it's like I'm going to put it into that, and this thing I could control that, but then I handed over control to that, And the problem is that when we get that itch scratched in a certain way, like okay. This is how lots of bullying starts. Bullying starts usually by a person who's been treated like shit by other people, and they feel powerless. And and mental health is a bully. It can make you feel powerless. So what do we want to do? Well, we want to feel powerful, right? Why do I do what I do? I do what I do because it feels pretty powerful to help people and uplift people. It actually also feels pretty powerful to control people. It feels powerful to bring people down too. all of these things are, I feel, are just a kind of, it's just an expression of that power. So
and it definitely is. Yeah, it's a power structure. Sorry, but it was going to say before, it was a power structure because it is kind of like they're supplanting people that they don't believe belong in certain positions. So they're like, I don't like the way this guy fucks. And now, you know what actually I'm enjoying right now, and this is kind of fucked up, but we're talking about, maybe this is a little bit mental health issue too, but I enjoy the John Mulaney shit that's going on right now. Do you know what's
I don't even know what that is.
So John Mulaney is a comedian that the US has embraced as the, like, you know, like the, I guess the, I don't see, I love the UK because you guys are you're way less prudish than we are. And you're also just used
to. Are you sure?
I mean, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure.
Are you getting this from Bridgerton or something?
Downton
Abbey. We're all completely and utterly, what's the word I'm looking for?
Wait, what?
Austin.
Well, I'm thinking of what's that show that fucking where like all the high school kids are just fucking constantly.
Sex Education.
No, from Britain. But that's a good one too.
No, that Sex Education is from Britain.
No, I know it is. I love that one. But I mean, what's the one that everyone watched back in the Skins? There we go. Yeah, it's Skins. But no, but that's what. But I mean, like that stuff is just like, I think that stuff's just on your TV normally, where it's like you guys are allowed to show tits on TV. I'm assuming, right? Is that the thing? Yeah. We don't do that. We can show an unchecked amount of violence. 24/7, guns, death, heads blown off, but boobs, nipples are not allowed. We can't do that.
Show it after a certain time. It's called The Watershed. I think it's 9 p.m. It's been a little while since I've watched actual TV.
Right. Yeah, same. But basically, but like the power thing is kind of, so John Mulaney is a comedian that like all the woke culture over here loves. They love him. You know what I mean? I'm sure they haven't even heard all of his stand up and don't quite get what he does, but they love him. He was married, clean cut dude, Thai, talked about his drug addiction when he was younger in his act all the time. Like he has jokes about it. He does talk about how he's sober, doesn't drink, doesn't do coke anymore. And why did it? But during the pandemic, he relapsed. And he went back into, doing coke and drinking and all that shit, right? And his friends had an intervention for him, and he went for rehab for, God, I don't know how long or whatever, like a few months, and then got out. He got out of rehab, divorced his wife, did a killer fucking stand-up set at City Winery, and now he's dating Olivia Munn, who's an actress that's here. And within like weeks of each other, and the people who were like parasocially involved with him don't know what to do, because this is their avatar, this is their hero, this is their dude. But it was funny because there was like this is like all American bullshit, but there's a Jerry Seinfeld, who I know you know who he is.
Yeah.
So he has a show called Comedians in Cars. He interviewed John Mulaney, and this is like the funniest thing, like the woke culture kind of watch that show in detail that no one would, because they assume they know their guy. That's their avatar. And they hate Seinfeld because he's a boomer. And because they just don't. And Jerry was making jokes about marriage and wives and all this stuff. But Jerry's happily married with 2 kids. And Mulaney's happily married at the time. So they were like, oh, you can tell how uncomfortable John is. Blah, blah, like constantly projecting this shit onto their guy. And I just love the fact that now, cut to, I don't know, like a year later, and back into drugs, rehab, out of rehab, told his wife to fuck off, dating a hot celebrity. I'm like, this is beautiful, because I don't think these people are used to foibles, like genuine human, and like now they have to figure out how to cope, and they don't know what to do. Like if you look at Twitter right now, it's just a mass of like people trying to figure out how to handle that. And it's bizarre to me, because I'm like, yeah, man, like people are not black and white, and you don't, you're projecting all your own shit onto a celebrity you think you like. That's what cancel culture is. They're like, they go up and down. This person's great. I love this person. This person's me. I am this person, and his values are my values. And then as soon as they wind up cheating, they're like, is that me? Did I get hurt? This person needs to go away. It's so bizarre, dude.
Yeah, it is one of the things that kind of proper stresses me out, because it's like, how do you even find a person that shares 100% of your values.
Right.
It's like and that's the whole problem, is that if you only get along with people that share 100% of your values, then either that encourages you to not to keep certain values to yourself in case people find out and ditch you, and the same as kind of like I mean when I go and give talks in high schools, I talk about the difference between fitting in versus belonging, and fitting in is basically you change something about yourself in order to be part of the in crowd, right? And then you end up actually kind of hating it because you're doing something that you don't want to do. For my generation, that would have been like smoking weed,
right.
maybe. Like you go and the cool kids, they didn't have leather jackets or anything like, because we all had school uniforms. So like.
Oh, really? You guys had school uniforms?
Yep, practically every high school, practically every school up until college. Which college for us is the last 2 years of high school for you, and then university is college. So we have like we basically are what would be our junior and senior year of high school for you is what we have as college. It's a 2-year sort of interim between high school and university. And
so university is you can do whatever you want there.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I don't think we have quite as many. I don't think we have quite as many subjects as in America. I don't think we have like Star Trek studies or like the because I'm sure
you son of a bitch. How dare you bring up?
I think we have real subjects now.
Yeah, I was gonna say we know you do.
We basically study the Queen. That's what we do. That's our. We don't.
Well,
we don't.
No. Yeah.
But
team Meghan Markle or team. Whatever.
I'm team don't give a shit, to be honest.
Yeah, I hear you, man.
They're people that look, honestly, they're not my celebrity. That's right. And I don't really do The Rock. There you go. He's my celebrity. I love him. But other than that, I don't really do celebrity. It's like and that's the whole thing. It's like people are there's an expression, gagging in. People are gagging in, which is like to a family and their relationships. And it's like, and we feel like we should have full access, and and it also seems as well that I hardly ever, if ever, maybe my mum, but I hardly ever talk about the royal family with people from the UK. It's always when I meet people on holiday or vacation. See, I'm totally putting all the words in the right places for you. Holiday, vacation, same thing. So if I meet Australians or Americans, they're always like, "What do you think about this situation?" I'm like, really don't care. It's
that's kind of what I've gotten from talking to people from we're like around your area and stuff like that too, which is interesting because it is so much more prevalent here, and I don't know why America gives a shit, but apparently we do, and I love that you guys don't. I love that you guys are like, I'm just riding it out.
That being said, the weird thing about it is I would say we probably tend to know more about your politics than ours.
I love the way you guys teach our politics, because I saw
Democrats right, Republicans wrong.
Well, yeah. Well, that's absolutely true. But I saw, so basically it was like the way UK looks at American politics and the way America looks at American politics. And it was a graph, and it was like where the popular politicians of today kind of stand. And in America, it was like Obama was perceived on the left of center, Bernie Sanders on the far left, and then everybody else kind of like moderately Republican. And in the UK version, it was like Obama was closer to right wing, center right wing or whatever.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's true. I mean, he's a Democrat, but he's a slightly left of center. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? His policies were, and the Clintons were also, closer to the right wing. And then Sanders was instead of all the way on the end, on the left, far left, it was like in the middle left. Warren was
like Bernie's not like socialist enough to be our full left.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, exactly. And it's not, but it's weird. But the way America would have you look at it, or the way they paint the picture when they're running, against the Democrats, that's the case. But it's funny. And then it had like Trump and everybody else literally tipping off the end of the right wing spectrum, like just barreling off. And I was like, that's so awesome, because we don't do that here. Trump is supposed to be the normal Republican and, conservative value, yada, yada, yada. Like that's what they're trying to paint the picture over here.
There was nothing conservative about him.
No,
but But yeah, it is bizarre. I've always found it really interesting. I try not to comment on other countries' cultures or politics at all, because as far as I'm concerned, you're all getting your own you're all getting your own journalistic spin within your country, and then we're getting the way that our journalism wants it to be portrayed, and then it's like we're destined to make our minds up and get our opinions from the most vocal people, and there's hardly any vocal centrists. It's like, because well, even if they are, no one pays attention. It's and the analogy I've kept on using for this over the last few weeks is, we see sitting on the fence as being in the middle, right? So basically, you're pushed. This is uncomfortable. It's painful. You're a fence sitter. You're lukewarm. You're not Democrat enough. You're not Republican enough. You're not left enough. You're not right enough, or whatever. I personally see there's a really spiky fence on all the extreme left, and there's a really spiky fence on all the extreme right, and then there's a whole lot of different possibilities in the middle. The field is in the middle, the fences are on the outside. So you're sitting on the fence, which is when I think it's like you 100% align with one side or another, because ultimately, and the most ironic thing is, every single person that does that calls the other side a sheep and thinks that they're the ones that are seeing the world for how it is. It's like, if you have to believe B because you believe A, that's not free will. People, I
mean, it's because of social media and TV too. It's like, it's like when TV was first like a thing, and like the Kennedy-Nixon debate, and they say Kennedy won even though Nixon had a better presentation, because Kennedy looked good, sounded good, and Nixon was just disgusting and sweating and all this shit. But the same way with social media and TV now today, people learned how to argue 101. So the other side does just call the other side a sheep. It's easy to fake, outrage or a principled opinion or anything like that, because everybody can kind of learn. It's almost like stand-up too. Like, there's great stand-ups, and there's people who are authentic on stage and have a voice and an opinion, and there's people who can kind of do it. And they just learn to sound and mimic the pattern, but their shit sucks. And you can spot it right away, but it doesn't matter, because they still get to say what they get to say and have that point. And the worst part is that media puts those people side by side on the same screen and goes, these are the equivalent, which is insane. But yeah, that's like even the I'm a liberal. I don't like, I just know that that's who I am. I hate labels. I'm not a fan of them, but I lean to the left. Doesn't mean I don't have or sound like I have some conservative opinions about shit. I know that the extremely far left and the woke, culture that's over here or whatever does not consider me in their field or whatever. But I also don't feel like, I don't want to be on anybody's team. I'm not a fan of that kind of shit. And I feel like, because once you do that, you get into kind of a hive mind mentality that you can't break out of. And they dig through your associations and your whatever. Like, I don't understand this concept of, if your friend fucks up, you abandon your friend, which is what, they would want you to do. You know what I mean? Like, I don't remember who the recent person was that they went after in society, but they were like, oh, I can't believe so-and-so is standing by. I'm like, why? They don't know you. You're a stranger. They don't owe you fucking shit. Like, if you've known somebody for over 20 something years, you fucking, I don't know. Like, what do you, like, you're all like inching towards the grave either way. So are they going to side with a, avatar on Twitter and a 140 character tweet with a clever hashtag? Or are they going to side with their buddy who they have dinner with and do whatever? It's a kind of taken a weird turn. And also the corporations, stuff like that, have been able to manipulate it. So it's all performative for them. They're like, all right, well, young people can turn a brand. So we're going to put all our money into, that kind of shit. And it winds up, making the issue worse.
Yeah. I mean, it's the way I see it is, let he who is without sin cast the first tweet.
I like that.
I mean, I don't know how we've ended up in politics, but
I don't know either. And by the way, I feel bad. That's an easy road to get into.
No, it's absolutely fine, and I don't mind it going there. And this is what I always say is that, and politics. This is the whole thing. Politics are massively linked in with mental health as well. You know, like how much a government decides mental health care versus physical health care is important. The resources the resources that get put into mental health care for people in underprivileged positions, and so on and so forth. Like these are all, these are all things that are absolute and utter matters of policy. So, and I think obviously especially in the last few administrations within the US, the person in charge, whoever's in charge, it really does make a difference. Over here, it really doesn't so much. Like we don't see huge, massive shifts or anything like that. We don't the Tories are kind of who are the ones that are currently in, which is the Conservatives, basically. There are Conservatives. If they win again, because I would say it's funny how like there's so many dodgy things that have happened since then. Obviously, Brexit happened as a result of them. Most of, like 40, I think that the vote was 49 to 51. So that's only a tiny minority that really actually wanted it. Like, well, it's a tiny majority, should have said, that wanted it. And the funny thing is, a lot of people in businesses and who were the ones that wanted it, it's come against them, because now importing things and exporting things over here is an absolute nightmare. Yeah. So it's not ended up being what was actually promised even to the people who voted for it, and so on and so forth. But I think if they got in again, like we'd be very British about it. We'd be very upset, but we wouldn't storm the Capitol.
Right.
Like, we're not really gonna get that kind of response over here. But still, it's there is, and it's funny really, because obviously weirdly, this current government has actually done more for mental health so far than any previous government has. Mm-hmm. They've assigned an ambassador and they've given him a big ton of money and to spend on things. But then obviously it's when we break that down, you find out that it's like £2 per child or whatever, the actual money that's for the number of children that are struggling with their mental health or whatever it is. And then people are like, it's not enough. And politics does lead to it, but changes in policy lead to improvement, like lead to the mental health care shifting over long periods of time. So it is an important topic. And one day I'll get someone on who understands I don't understand politics a huge amount. I'm not the most educated person on it as I should be, probably. And that's part of my mental health work, because I know a lot of mental health work, like people who work in the industry, who part of what they do is campaigning, is out there pushing for policy and pushing for those things. And that's not part of my remit. My remit is to help the individual. My remit, that's just as important. I mean, it's good that you do that kind of stuff too, because there's I feel like personally that's what you're good at. You know what I mean? And you know what you're good at, and you should be focused on that. Like, I understand the inclination to want to be like, oh, I should probably be doing more, and I should probably know about the politics. But like, there's people who are policy wonks and stuff like that, and they're really good at like dealing like mentally with that kind of stuff. So let them do that and let you do the individual. Yeah, that's it. And it's always literally at the back of my mind is, who am I speaking to? And it's like, because it's come up a bunch of times of whether within movies, which comes back to the censorship thing and the trigger warning and content warning thing, which I think is how we started to get along this path.
It did. But you're right. It's all connected.
Coming back to that, we've had the conversation a lot of times recently as to whether media needs to be doing a better job. And I'm like, yes, it does. However, I'm not speaking to Hollywood film execs here. I'm talking to you, the end consumer. So what we need to do is, ultimately, we actually shouldn't need those we shouldn't need those things at the beginning of it that says this show depicts autism, and this is only one interpretation of autism, and there are many different interpretations of autism, and also this show is there for also entertainment purposes primarily before educational purposes. If you want to learn more about autism, please go here, or whatever. That is probably what is probably going to start happening. But really, I feel like we shouldn't need that, because we should look at it and go, it's a film. Not going to I don't go to Fast and Furious to learn about how to drive cars. I don't go and watch Pumping Iron. Actually, maybe Pumping Iron I did, because that was more of a documentary. What's the other one? The one with The Rock and Mark Wahlberg and whatever that was called. No, that might have been called Pumping Iron. Anyway.
Oh, I know that. Yeah. I think
Get Hard was not that, because Get Hard was the one with Will Ferrell and Kevin Hart.
Yeah,
where he's getting him prepared for being in prison. But But basically, it's like, what are we doing going to movies for our education on these things? It's and people like, but people do, and I'm like, okay, but people shouldn't. And that's and who am I speaking to? I'm speaking to the people within my audience. I'm saying, look, next time you do it, next time you watch a film, please filter it through this. Filter it. I have type 2 bipolar disorder. I've seen multiple things with bipolar disorder represented. Some of it's not the same way as how life is for me. Some of it is. And I know other people that the thing that isn't like my variation of bipolar disorder, it's exactly like theirs. Homeland being the prime one, like Homeland, how Carrie was in that. A lot of people say that was a good good representation of bipolar. To me, it wasn't. Like, I'm like, this is not accurate in the slightest.
Right.
But and that's the whole thing. Is like, but that was what opened my eyes to that, because I thought, right, well, other people have said that this is accurate and that's not accurate for me. And then I watched.
And it's funny, because, by the way, sorry, not to interrupt, but by the way, when you say that there's people that said it was a good interpretation, because it's a piece of entertainment and because of you don't know who's driving the driving force behind that entertainment, you don't know who was paid to say it was a good piece of whatever. You don't know who's actually reviewing it. You know who's putting that out there into the system, because the way those things work is, if it's backed by the right people and they need this thing to sell, they're going to have the right people say the right things about it. And for somebody who's actually going through it to go, not my thing, or, not exactly how it is, I would value probably your opinion over that more than anything else. But I like that you're also like, this is a piece of entertainment and it's not something that needs to be dwelled over.
Yeah. But and it was, the people that said it were other bipolar people in my chat one day. So I'd take their opinions over. I'd take their opinions over, again, the critics that were out there, because you can it's like there was a piece of news about the CEO of WeWork, who basically run office spaces, saying that it's easy to tell who the most what's the word, the most not attached, invested. There we go. It's easy to tell who the most invested people are in the workforce. It's the people that want to come back to the office right now. Of course you're saying that. You sell office space.
Right.
It's like there's no bias there whatsoever. It's
right.
And
it's insane.
So you do have to, I suppose, be aware of where this information is coming from. But to kind of finish that point from before, it's like, in terms of why would you do this? Okay, well, if you can get someone cancelled, that is control. That's it. That's, I did something today, and I think it's done with the best intentions most of the time. I think most of these things are done with positive intentions. Yeah. I think that person, but there is also an element of that person feels good for having done that. The problem, and it's interesting how, when it does come back to being, as you said before, one of their own avatars, and then it becomes this situation where their avatars suddenly start they're either walking on eggshells or think, I don't want to be associated with this clique anymore whatsoever, because it's like, okay, I either capitulate to what they want in order to keep my career intact. Right now, and the problem is the argument that comes back to that usually points out just the outright abhorrent behavior, and it's like, well, this person was just being racist, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, and okay, freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from the consequences of your speech, and I respect that 100%. But at the same time, there are also people who, when we're not given the opportunity to grow anymore, we're not given we're not given the opportunity to overcome. And that's funny, because we love an underdog story. They initially, what was the guy's name again? Robert Mulaney?
John Mulaney.
John Mulaney. Who's Robert Mulhern? Is that another person as well? So John Mulaney. So
it does sound like a person.
It's probably a person. But like as you said, he had his addictive problems earlier in life. He dealt with all of those. They were all kind of out in the open, and he's come, and we love that. I remember watching an interview, because I was very, very anti-drugs as a kid as well. I remember watching an interview where the Backstreet Boys were on TV, and AJ was like, "Yeah, no, I've been sober for like 6 months now," and everyone in the audience was like, "Way!" And I was just sat there, like 14-year-old me or whatever, being like, "How about never taking drugs in the first place? Why is no one clapping for like the rest of them?" And that was
they
what
love that shit.
But it's funny, like that was because of like my serious anti-drugs bias that I had when I was a kid, and but I was always like, oh, why? But we do, and I think we love a person that comes back, but we love a person that comes back from doing shitty things to themselves. Like we're not so keen to love a person that comes back from doing shitty things to other people.
Well, I mean, not in entertainment though. I mean, like in every movie, every script, every book, there's always a character that starts off like a fucking asshole. And then, especially in a series, you always have like people love watching a show, hating one character.
Oh, yeah.
But if the show goes on long enough and they're like, well, now the character's got an arc and he's come around. Like, did you watch Game of Thrones? Are you a Game of Thrones fan?
Yeah.
Jamie Lannister pushed that fucking kid out of a goddamn window. By season 8, women were masturbating to him every time he was on screen. So like, I'm like, hey, but like
episode 1, there were some people masturbating to.
Yeah, that is true. But you know what I mean? Like they love that shit. But it's funny because if it's like a comedian who says something fucking shitty or does some kind of fucked up shit, they're like, burn it. You know what I mean? And that's it. They don't get it. Like it's crazy because I'm like, this is real life, motherfucker. And there's people who go through like processes when they're like, the idea to me that somebody was like said something about Dustin Hoffman in 1983. Fuck you. It's 2021. So it does like he's a different you're a different person from one day to the next. I don't care. I mean, it's insane to me that they have this ability to go like, again, if it's nothing serious, if it's like murder or rape, then it's, whatever. But like what you did in the 80s and the 70s and the 60s, sorry, it does it. Like at that point, I'm like, that's clearly your issue. And I hope you're able to cope and deal with that in a way that's beneficial to you. But the idea that we have to like throw these people to the lions is insane.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, within the mental health industry, one of the things I teach to people is the difference between I failed and I'm a failure. And people love this. Parents love this when I say to them, my son Joe, the youngest one, he comes in here. Sometimes he's Mr. Penpro. He broke his switch, by rage quitting and throwing it one day. Maybe through the switch of the TV. I can't remember. He broke something, and then obviously, I got a bit angry, shouted at him, and then afterwards, I heard him screaming and shouting at himself. And I'm like, what are you shouting about? And he's like, I'm just so stupid. And I'm like, no, you did something stupid.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that what he did isn't stupid. Like, it was stupid. And it is. Like, it's like, I guess I understand that his emotions got to a certain level and all this. But throwing that at the thing is stupid. I have bipolar disorder. I smashed up my kitchen once when I was on a manic episode. It was stupid. But I'm not stupid. And I was like, and he's not stupid. And when I teach the difference between I'm a failure and I failed, to like, especially like, you'll see it with school teachers, and they're like, oh God, because failure is part of it and all the rest of it. But the thing is, and the mental health industry love that. They love that shift, because I failed meant I failed in an isolated scenario and now I have an opportunity to do better. I'm a failure means I will always fail because I am intrinsically a failure. Now, The thing is, but the exact same community want to turn around to people who make mistakes now, and instead of saying you fucked up, they want to say you're a fuck up. Right. Or like you did something shitty, they want to say you're a piece of shit.
I think that has to do, I think some of that is, a lot of it is projecting. It's like they expect so much of themselves, and then when they see somebody else doing it, it makes them feel good to judge. I can't remember the name for that, but it's also in like religions use it too, which is, I can't remember what the name for this is, but somebody had a great term for it, where it's like Catholics do that. Well, Catholics believe themselves to be good because they position themselves against somebody that's bad.
Oh, right.
So they're like, this guy's doing some fucked up shit, but it's not me. I don't do that shit. And then it's like, and then, and that's what I feel like a lot of that is sometimes. It's like, how much do you hate yourself, where you just don't have any, like you're going after a stranger with no context, no nuance, no window of before and after this person. You only see them through the view of this one spectrum. And that's it. Like, how is that possible? And how is it possible that you can watch an entire, series of a TV show and go, beautiful arc. Love that this guy came around finally. I'm like, he killed a child.
Hey, he didn't die.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Spoiler alert. He went on to beep. No, I'm joking. I'm not.
You know what? That's fine because that fucking last season sucked.
Last season was bad. I was only saying it to someone today who was actually just rewatching Lost because he didn't remember it, and like they were like, "Oh, Lost was a terrible ending." I'm like, "Nah, Lost was a bad ending." Then Dexter's ending was slightly worse than that, but all of it's like you warm up for the ending of Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones was like, by the time I got to Game of Thrones, I'd already enjoyed Lost's ending. I'd made peace with it. I'd already enjoyed Dexter's ending. I'm still a little bit bitter about that, but they're bringing Dexter back, so who cares?
Yeah.
And then I'd obviously I'm still mad. I'm still mad about the ending of Game of Thrones. Because
I would have watched that over. I would have absolutely watched that series over. If it didn't end the way it did, I would have been like, yeah, like maybe every couple of years, something like that, revisit the whole thing and watch it from the beginning. But no can do. They fucked us.
Apparently, George R.R. Martin is going to finish it, and it's going to be the proper ending. So,
oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Good. At least I mean, here's hoping he stays alive.
Well, yeah, we've been saying that for like 7 years. It's fine. He's he just needs to write a little bit quicker, Right. There's two main topics to this interview, and we're already like an hour and 15 minutes into it, and we've not got to them. Which
sorry about that.
It's fine.
Lead us into it.
It's cool. So the main topics obviously being depression, and the other one being comedy. Now, can you talk me through your experience with depression?
Yeah. So the one that brought out, like the one that when it really hit was like probably 2013 to 2016, early 2017. I've been straight depressed for like 3 years. And remember what I talked about earlier was just like situations kind of exacerbating what's already naturally there. Mm-hmm. So even if you've got these kind of walls up and float, I always describe it as being in an ocean with like flotation device. Like depression is having and living with it is like you're always on the verge of drowning, but you've developed these little flotation devices. So it's your family, your friends, and then all this other stuff that you cope with. And, when one kind of doesn't work, you float over to the other and you hang on. The ocean may get a little rocky, but you still kind of, you maintain, whatever. And by 2013, there was nothing left to hang on to. And I was wildly depressed. Sandy had hit. My parents lost their house. My mom fell into like a deep depression as well because everything she had was gone. The whole house was just underwater. And they had to live in the apartment complex that I talked to the people who lived at the apartment complex that I was in to give like Sandy aid, basically. So my parents had like didn't have to pay like a full price for staying temporarily until their house was set up. Yeah. So that was cool. But it still kind of fucked everything up. I was also dating somebody who was going to school in Chicago, law school. So that put Sandy put a huge strain on that relationship. And that relationship wasn't going that well to begin with anyway, just because the distance was so bad and I had no money and my career wasn't going that great either. And then I started to without even realizing it, because so much was going on. Normally, when I'm feeling sad or whatever, I go, all right, well, this is how it's going to be for the next few days. We're going to ride this shit out and, it'll sort itself out, or I'll do what I normally do to get back to it or whatever. But because so much was going on, I didn't see it coming. Mm-hmm. So I started to the fact that I couldn't afford a plane ticket all the time to go out there to see her or whatever. It was like, I was like, well, this because you fucking suck. Like, why isn't your career any better? Why isn't this going any better? And at the time too, it's somewhere in between there, I just gotten a really a decent manager too, but I didn't even notice that as a positive. It was just like, I was just still already kind of struggling to stay afloat, putting everything I had into the relationship so it didn't fail. Also trying to, help my parents out or whatever. And then my mom and stepdad had to separate at the time because, they were just struggling with everything going on with Sandy and couldn't handle, just, adult shit, just shit that was going on. That didn't affect me in a major way, but it was just adding to a list of okay, now this shit's going on, helping them both move, doing all this crap. Also, I had a part-time job at the time. I lost that because of Sandy. So I was on unemployment for the first time ever. And the stand-up gigs were not going great either because, all that stuff had been going on. Yeah. So I was just I just felt horrible. And I was then also still writing for a guy, for a couple different TV shows and stuff, but like my main source of income is still writing. But the guy was such a huge douche that I was like, really, is this what it's fucking come to? So just putting shit on myself, not putting all this work into stuff, not being able to get out of it. 2013, that happens. Break up with that girl, find out again that she cheated. And not in a major way, but in a way that was like lying and all this crap. Abandoned that, jumped ship, and never dealt with anything. My mom got back into the house after they had kind of rebuilt it, but FEMA kind of fucked up, so the money wasn't there. They were still kind of separated, but I was still trying to manage all this crap, and it was unmanageable. So, but I never dealt with it, never had time to. So it just, when Sandy hit, even in my apartment complex, we were out of power for 3 weeks and people were running on generators. So I had to stay at somebody else's house, and there was no place to go because my parents didn't have a place to go. So it was just bizarre, man. And then I just kept going. 2013, 2014 happened. And I had also developed like stomach issues that I think I'd always had. But again, all this stuff kind of exacerbated it. Mm-hmm. So it was like this just downward spiral where always in good shape all my life. This kind of crap happened. Mental health diminishing, physical health fucking diminishing, not being able to figure out why. Doctors putting me on wrong medication because I wasn't saying I was like losing my mind or anything like that either. I was just like, yeah, I have these stomach issues. I don't get what's going on. They were like, it's heartburn. And I was like, what? I don't think it is. Like, maybe that's not it, but whatever. Not having great health insurance. Actually, I don't think I had any at the time. So that was a pain in the ass. So all that stuff happened. And then, just fell into a depression and literally kept going to the point where by 2015, I had moved to LA because which by the way, worst mistake you can fucking do when you're depressed. I mean, that is the town of just fucking sunlight, and every day is like the sun is just mocking you. Like just 75 and sunny, and why aren't you happy and outside? And fuck, I don't know why. So yeah, 2015 hit, but I thought I was doing all right. Like I thought I kind of climbed out of it, but it was like climbed out of it, kind of teetering on that edge, like still not doing that great. And very negative, but also trying to manage it. So then I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to move. Some stuff was going on. I had network meetings and career was doing okay, but I was like, totally different change. Thought that was going to help. Moved to LA, bounced around a lot, spent way too much money I didn't have, blew through any savings I had just to stay out there.
Yeah.
So all that shit was going on. And then I didn't even realize it at that point. I was like, just like constantly thinking about killing myself, where I was like, all right, look, you tried. Oh, because at the time too, I was doing stand up out there, but because of the, how like depression will just attack you physically.
Yeah.
Like I was losing my voice on stage. So like I would try to do my material and then all of a sudden I wouldn't be able to physically speak anymore. I was like, what the fuck's going on there? And then of course, hypochondria, I'm like, oh, it's throat cancer, obviously. Not a doctor, but so I was like, yeah, that must be it. So I'm like, but I couldn't speak. I was forgetting material because it was just the overwhelming amount of anxiety and just it was just too deep. Like at that point I was like, oh, I'm wildly fucking depressed and I cannot get out of this hole. So that was it. And then I was like, but casually thinking about it, I would never do it. But I was very much, this is the closest I'd ever been to considering it, where I was like, I think it's just time to check out. And I think it's fine. Because I was like, I actually at the point at time, I think I thought I could convince people. Like I was going to draw up a list and be like, look, this is how everything's going. And obviously the market's down. So like on my life, it's like, so I think I'm good. Like, I think I don't want to do anything else. I can't get out of this mental state. Everything kind of sucks. I think it'd just be best if I pieced out. But and I was sleeping on an air mattress, no air conditioning, hottest summer ever. All that was affecting me, super miserable. But like, I was alone out there, so not a lot of friends, some family, but they were super right wing, so sometimes it was like hard to get along. And the guy that I was renting from was also a right wing gun nut, so that was fun. So I was like, where are you right now, John? Like at this point in time, what have you done? But like stuff would slightly keep me going, where like my manager would call and be like, hey, he would be excited about something. I'd be like, I got this great audition, or you're going to meet with this executive at NBC or whatever it was. And I would kind of be like, all right, I'll go. But I was like, all right, I got it. Or like somebody I did meet at a comedy club, like a friend or whatever, would be like, hey, we're doing something on Thursday. And it'd be like Monday. And I'd be like, I can get myself together by Thursday. But I would just stay in bed from Monday to Thursday, not doing, or like try to do stuff. It was, and that was it. And then I don't know, there was nothing really that kept me going. I just felt shittier every day. And every day I just felt closer to being like, I hated going to sleep because I knew I'd wake up feeling just as shitty. And it was just this cycle I thought I was never going to get out of. And I wish I could tell you exactly how, other than just hoping the next day would be better. I can't tell you how I wouldn't be able to tell anybody how I pulled myself out of it. Because I didn't even enjoy the things I like I tried to watch movies I enjoyed, or tried to focus on but like the stuff, it took a long fucking time. Like again, 3 years. And it feels like I lost 3 years of my life. Or a little over 3 years, I guess. But yeah.
See, that was going to be my follow-up question, is what got you out of it. And obviously you've already preempted me on that one. However...
Yeah, I mean, I could maybe, but I don't know. I don't, like I said, there were little things I think I realized I was doing now where, like I said, I'd make sure I had something I liked to eat, which is just so weird, but so simple. Where I was like, all right, at night, I'm going to at least get something I enjoy food-wise, even though I was going through like some, stomach issues and all the other stuff that was whatever. I'm just going to get something I like to eat, and I'm going to try to watch something I enjoy, whatever it is, and then check out. But then, whatever.
There's this video on my YouTube, sneaky plug, called Depression Demystified, Anhedonia, right? There's something called anhedonia. It's a condition of depression, which is where we either stop or perceive or believe that we will not enjoy the things that we normally enjoy. So the enjoyment is taken out of what we would normally enjoy. And the funny thing is that I've probably first experienced this, and also first experienced coming around from it by accident when I was a teenager, in the fact that basically I was diagnosed at 14, but I kept that to myself. Like, I went to the doctors on my own volition and didn't ever tell anything to my parents. They were separated. My mum was running a business. My brother was never at home. There was enough going on.
Right.
But what they would do is, when I was being moody, or whatever they called it at the time,
right,
which basically meant, because bipolar, either the super energetic fun person that you all know and love, or the exact opposite.
Right.
What they would do is they put on Billy Connolly videos.
Love Billy Connolly.
Or Jack D was the other one as well. So we're talking like sort of late 80s, early 90s kind of videos and stuff here. And the thing is, almost the more I'd sit there and be like, this isn't going to work, I can't be over with this. And the beautiful thing about comedy is that good comedy relies on surprising you. It relies on giving you a bit of, the punchline has to surprise you, because if it doesn't, then you can kind of see it coming. Unless it's one that if the ones that you've heard before, you laugh along to them because you've enjoyed them before and you've got the memory of enjoying them before. But that good comedy breaks through that kind of barrier, that expectation that nothing's ever going to enjoy. But the thing is, as an adult, it still sort of works as an adult. I watched a bunch of stand-up a few weeks back as for the same reason. But what you've just said there, if I'm going to actually do something that I enjoy, I'm going to eat something I enjoy. For some people, it's I'm gonna treat myself like I like myself today. I'm gonna actually have a shower and brush my teeth, or I'm actually going to eat, or I'm gonna get out of bed, or I'm gonna go out in that sunshine that might be mocking me outside the door. And the problem with it is that with depression, when anhedonia kicks in, if you like you said, then you've got all these different things that all contributed towards it. It's very hard to say which one. Probably all of them. That they're all chipping in to kind of contribute towards it. When we get to that point of anhedonia, we tend to kick out the things that are good for us. So we've got all these things contributing to our pain, and very little contributing towards our pleasure. And most people tend to do will go with escapism. And like last year, I used this in because my depression, like a lot of people over the course of the pandemic, all of my coping mechanisms pretty much went out the window. My depression started getting worse. My highs got higher as well because bipolar disorder. But I remember like one day, sort of towards the end of last year, thinking I really don't want to do anything today, but I'm going to go and walk the dog, and I know I won't like it while I'm out there. And I probably might not even like it when I get back. But I know that at the end of the day, I can sit there and go, oh, at least I did something for myself. And then what I was going to say before is like, it's actually, I found a lot of power in your story because we're so used to hearing someone say something big happened and changed this. This happened and then this obvious thing came along. And when we actually hear a lot of those stories, we're like, because like, you know, the most common one is, I found the love of my life and she saved me, or I found my new job and it saved me, or whatever. And so many people who are stuck in that position of depression, when it is that we're looking for that external white knight to come riding in on the horse and save the day, then we actually then believe that white knight's never coming for us. That's great that it happened for Dave, but it's never coming for me. That's great that it happened for this person, but that's never coming for me. But given the fact that yours was, I just endured it, and then one day it was a little bit better. Yeah, that to me is immensely powerful.
Thanks, man. I mean, I never looked at it that way, but that is, enduring it. That's a good way to look at it, because that's exactly what I wound up. Like, that's why I feel like I don't know that, like, I know you can feel like you want, I think sometimes when people think they want to kill themselves, what they want to do is obviously stop feeling what they're feeling. And they think and they think that'll be some kind of relief instead of the fact that you're just dead and you won't be able to feel anything. And the other part of that is that I think they just want to know what it'd be like to not exist. And I think you can actually do that for yourself without actually having to do it, you know, without actually doing anything physical to yourself. You can just remove yourself. Like, sometimes people need 6 months off. I mean, again, I wouldn't recommend taking 3 years, but but like sometimes people just need, like, okay, I'm going to eliminate this from my life at the moment and this from my life at the moment. And hopefully, you know, your friends and family kind of understand if you need to take time for yourself. But that's a good way to do it. But yeah, I mean, I was just kind of hoping every day that it would be that I'd get back to who and what I was beforehand. Yeah. And, you know, luckily it did.
Did you get back to who you were beforehand, or did you become something new?
Both. I have things that I'm able to enjoy all the things that I liked before, but I did become someone new, and that's for better or worse. Where, like, I think even less bothers me now than it probably did before. I think I look at relationships differently. I think I'm way. I have to remind myself that not everyone is as pragmatic or like practical as me about stuff. Or like, I always have like I hate when people talk about themselves like this, by the way. But I always have like a great deal of empathy and stuff like that. And I like, you know, I can relate to certain things, but I think I have less patience than I did before. Where like I'll go like, okay, like this person's dealing with this, and this, and I'll walk them through this and this and this. But like when I think there's too much self-involvement or too much, when I see somebody leaning into the way I did it, I get a little like nervous about it for them and kind of like go, okay, now it's tough love time, enough is enough. And, you know, we gotta try a different approach here, because there's hand holding and then there's like, I'm going to have to drag you through this. And I don't know if that works necessarily for everybody, but
you know, it's funny because it comes back to what we were talking about earlier, and about the fact that if we do just say it's okay not to be okay and leave a person there, and the person never does anything themselves. I'm a very big fan of having assistance, but it's having assistance isn't somebody does the journey for you. It's having assistance, and it's Alona hates it when I talk about this. I mean, she's just put an absolutely ridiculous. She was trying to sneak a cup of tea onto my table, but she was doing it through my microphone's cable, which I knew might have caused some noise on the stream. So I grabbed
it, and I was like, "Is that me?" Or
because she thought she could just come through down here where the and put a cup of tea on my table, and I picked it up off her, and it was boiling hot, and I've hurt my hand now. Feel sorry for me. But the thing is, she was like she was one of the best things that happened to me, because I went through my transformation in the year before we got together, but I wasn't fully there. I was still kind of I needed to, we always say to people, when you become single, work on yourself, because either you'll be better next time you're in a relationship, or you'll be better for yourself. It's a win-win situation. It's like, so if you get into another relationship, you'll be stronger, you'll be more secure. If you don't get into another relationship, you'll be stronger and you'll be more secure, and you won't and it's a win-win situation. And that's what I was doing the year before me and her got together. And the funny thing is, if someone had told me going in what she was going to be like, I probably wouldn't have bloody, I probably wouldn't have pursued the first date as heavily as I did. She's not listening right now, is she? But she doesn't listen to my stuff. It's fine. I can say anything I want about her on it. But she's a lot less handholdy, and she's a little bit more like, when I first got with her, I saw it as cold. I don't see it as cold anymore, and it's definitely not. She's not a cold person in the slightest, but she's Eastern European, so she's very to the point with the way she talks, and basically would not coddle me in the slightest. And the thing is, that led to a very rocky first 6 months.
Right.
But it was exactly what I needed, because I think if I hadn't have done any of the work on myself before that relationship wouldn't have gone past the first month, or maybe it definitely got. The first couple of dates were all right, so there was none of that then. Although the very first day I met her, she was kind of giving me all this banter in front of my friends, and I was like, that was like, I'm going to make an effort to actually see if I can get her to like me by the end of the day. It seemed like a good challenge. So, but again, 6 months previous, I would have been like, I don't like this person, she's mean. And but the thing is, if I'd have found another relationship like my first wife was very much was a very much it's okay not to be okay, and never really pushed me to try and be any better than I was.
Right.
And that felt safe and secure and stuff, but ultimately just led to me, like, falling into my own kind of despair and my like, essentially what I would say is, for me, at that stage in my life, the barometer of what it took to make me sad, or the barometer of what it took to make me triggered, affected, or whatever it might be, just kept getting lower and lower. Like, I didn't need the big life events or the big scary things to happen. It was what set me off was getting lower and lower and lower, and I was becoming theoretically weaker and weaker and weaker, falling further and further into my condition. And then, to the point at which, obviously, the year before I got with Alona, I tried to take my own life. That was where I got to with all of that. And then it was only, I wanted to try and go in the opposite direction after that. And but that whole not literally running every single time I had an episode, not like, basically mollycoddling me through absolutely everything.
Right.
It forced me to very much be like, I've got to do some of this myself. And the funny thing is, we've learned to communicate since then. And she's like, she's probably way more willing these days to actually be like that compassionate ear and stuff whenever I need it. But that was exactly what I needed. And it's very hard for people to accept that, because whenever I tell that story, people are like, oh, she sounds really mean. And she's not a mean person in the slightest, but the ex I had before, it was very mean. The one in the middle was very mean, that didn't help me. So
yeah, no, that never helps you. I dated somebody whose entire family thought that, like, therapy and like her dad was very, like, therapies for pussies, and mental health doesn't exist. And the funny thing was that she wound up dealing with mental health issues that I didn't even notice that she had, because she was always up all the time. And but she didn't deal with her own because her dad was like that. So it was interesting, like, years later, to find out that, like, I was like, yeah, I kind of thought you were dealing with some shit, but she didn't want to admit it because her father thought it was a weakness, and yada yada yada. And that's the thing. I have that short film out, Dup It, on Amazon Prime, which is kind of a short overview of that time or whatever. The whole point of that whole thing is about how communication is incredibly important for people who are depressed. Like, when my friends and I, one of the things that helped me deal with it when I was younger, or like early to late 20s, early to mid 20s, was I had like a core group of friends, and when we all started talking about it, it was like eye opening, because it was like, oh my God, you feel like this too? I think this, and this. And then it's like, you don't feel fucked up. And then, they're just as fucked up as you are. And then the funny thing is that you get used to that kind of pattern. And like, you'll go to ask like a friend, you'll go to talk to a friend that you don't normally talk to that way, the same way you talk to your other friends. And they're kind of like, the fuck's wrong with you, dude? And you're like, nothing. What's wrong with you? I'm just asking how you are. Like, tell me what you're feeling. Like, you seem stressed. And they're just like, why? I don't want to do any of that. And you're like, nah, just do it. It'll make you feel like it's funny, because like the depression thing is, its whole job is to make you feel alone. And the thing is, like, that's why I hate the expression, the misery. I sent you the thing, but I was like, what's misery loves company. And I'm like, I don't think it does. I think it hates company. I think once you realize that like other people feel that same fucking way, it's like a sense of relief where you're like, oh, thank God. My worst thoughts are also this guy's worst thoughts, and that girl's, and this guy, my boss, and fucking. I think people would get along better, especially even in like social situations and situations where there's any kind of hierarchy, when you all know you're feeling the same thing. Because the reason there's any animosity is like people will look at me, I know for sure, because of how I am naturally and how I behave naturally, is like, this guy's self-assured, confident, and he's got not a problem in the world. And I'm like, that's just not true. Like it's like I work very hard to present myself in a way, especially when I'm on stage or when I'm around friends. I make sure I want to have a good time. And there's a lot of work that gets put into avoiding people that are not a good time to be with, and making sure that I'm having fun and everybody around me is having a good time. But it's not like that all the time. It's not like that in my head. Like this past week sucked. I was like, I would not say like wildly depressed, but I was just like, just questioning career choices and coming out of the pandemic and all this other crap. And I was like, I just should have been a fucking farmer. Or like, I would have much rather just tended to my goats or whatever. Just because I don't know. I have no idea why. And I was talking to another comedian. I have a podcast now that I do called Dystopia Tonight, and I get to I'm just interviewing celebs and people I like and know, and with bands and stuff. And a great comic, Judy Gold, was on. And we were in the green room before we got on. And I was like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, and she's like, I'm fucking miserable. And I was like, oh my God, thank God, me too. And then she was like, right? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, can we just talk about that on air? And I was like, absolutely. And we did. We were just like, what the fuck is it? And it's like, I think there's a post-pandemic. Like, I don't know how you were during the pandemic. I don't know I know a couple people in England and kind of how it went over there about as well as it went over here. But I was pretty much okay. Like, as far like I know, like I felt for like all the people that didn't have the same issues I had mental health wise suddenly were faced with them, and I felt like I got you. I know how to handle this. I've got all the tools. Let me show you. Like, it felt, it felt like okay. And I also took a particular joy in watching people who lorded whatever they had over you crumble, which is, by the way, fucked up, and I know it. But I was like, oh, that comedy club owner is losing his business without, who is it again? Who do you need again? Comedians? Pay us more. Or whatever. And I was like, because we survive, and it was, so it's kind of like that. It's like this whole other perspective, especially coming out of it, where you're kind of like, okay, I don't want to go back to 2019 because this whole situation has shown probably your self-worth and, what you can survive and make it through, and probably all the shitty things you don't need and that didn't necessarily survive during that time. And watching those things try to claw their way back and try to go back to quote unquote normal. For me, like, I got kind of bummed out because I'm trying to ease back into going out on tour again and, managing the social media thing and all that other stuff, where I'm like, wow, I'm trying not to get bummed out about it, because I see these people trying to make their way back in. And then it's like a mental process of going, okay, yeah, they're trying to do that, but we already know what they're not good at surviving you already know who they are as people, and who you are out of this. So if you just stay that course, it'll be okay and you'll get less frustrated. But, I'll probably fuck up.
There's a bunch of questions coming in from chat, and funnily enough, they're all in the sort of the same direction of where my kind of final one-to-one question is going is ultimately I wanted to ask how does, like, you know, basically living with mental health whilst living in a career that is as much of an up and down roller coaster as comedy is, any form of being in the public eye, you know, the highs that come with the applause, the lows that come with the bits in between and all the rest of it. How does all of that interplay for you?
I think it's made me stronger overall, just because in the beginning, when you bomb in front of 200 people, your thought process is, holy shit, 200 people fucking hate me. And, you know, that feeling is so fucking low when you do it. And it's a struggle between wanting to do the thing you love and get better at it. And by the way, working at it in real time, because there's no practice. Practice is going and doing this thing.
Yeah.
That's what makes it basically different than any other job, is that you're on the clock while you're getting paid to do the thing you're supposed to be good at. It's insane. Yeah. So, like, you know, there's been times I remember driving home earlier from a gig and being like, that was the worst night of my life. I cannot believe I bombed. I feel awful. Those headlights in the other oncoming traffic lane look great. You're just like, meep. But then like you go, something clicks in and you're just like, no, I'm going to book 5. I want to get good at it. So I think doing that over the course of time, you know, made me a little stronger, especially when you realize those people don't remember you, you know, and most of the mistakes, like every time you think you're out with people and you're doing something foolish or you're not paying attention, they're also in their own. It's like being at the gym. You know, when you're at the gym and you got one of those gyms that has, like, not to brag, I go to the gym sometimes. But you know, they've got, yeah. Second. But they've got like, where's Bounty? He's in better shape than everybody. But they got those mirrors, and you suddenly realize that when you fuck up at the gym, you think that, oh my God, everybody just saw that. And it's like, no, everybody's literally looking at themselves, especially if there's mirrors. No one is paying attention to you. So I think that's kind of like a good way to think about life in general sometimes. Like every time you think you're in your own head, so is everybody else around you. And they probably didn't notice the thing that you're self-conscious about. And they're probably much kinder than you think you are. To yourself. And the comedy, the comedy thing is just, I mean, the public eye kind of sucks because now it's like people think they know who you are and there's no context or nuance. Mm-hmm. So it could be hard to navigate. You know, people think they know you from one tweet or one bad day or one fucked up joke. But again, if you have a good core center of who you are, and a good group of friends and family and stuff like that, even if you don't or whatever, like if you just know who you are, then you're fine. Then nobody can ever, you know, shake you or whatever. And then the regular stuff, like I just said, coming out of this, trying to deal with it. I mean, you do get depressed about that kind of stuff. And it does get like a little harder to deal with sometimes. But one way to cope with that is I like to think about where I was a couple years ago and where I am now. Mm-hmm. And like, I'll go, oh, hey, you know what? This time around last year, I was feeling super shitty, but you know, 6 months after that, I had this experience and at a great hotel. And if I, you know, did anything dumb then, I wouldn't be around to enjoy this, or I wouldn't be around to enjoy the next thing. So, you know, it's kind of like, I'm very interested into seeing the end of the story now at this point. And I think that if everybody thinks about that, is like, oh, it is, your life's a story. And it's going to have ups and downs, and it should be seen as exciting. You know, it should be like, what the fuck's going to happen to me next? Instead of like, what the fuck is going to happen to me? You know, it should be like, hey.
Oh, no. Serious. That's honestly, that's weirdly the way one of the ways I teach people to handle anxiety. Oh, wow. Is they go, oh my God, what if it all goes wrong? And then you change the tone of voice. What if it all goes wrong?
Yeah,
yeah. Like, and this, like, it's, in fact, I usually tell people, let's go with what if it all goes right, which is like, I can't wait to see what's next in the positive, as opposed to, you know, and it's the thing is, because when we anticipate that what's going to be good next is bad, we feel bad now. So it doesn't matter whether what's next is good or bad. We feel bad now. And so many times we're proven wrong. It's like, how many times in your life have you gone, actually, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be?
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
or you've had a great time. Like that's the thing. Like I've had friends who had anxiety about, like I said, like parties and stuff. And I used to have a lot of parties when I was younger or whatever. And I would have people over my apartment and all this other crap. And I'd have some friends that I have to really work to convince. And I would do what I did for myself years ago for them, where I would be like, all right, but last time you came out, like I would show them a text they had sent me, which was like, that was fucking great. So glad I came out. All your friends are awesome. And I would be like, it's the same thing. Like, did you have a good time last time? And also, even if you have a bad time, I always used to think about, like, did you wake up the next day? Yeah. So you went to a bar, you had a bad time, whatever. You went to bed, you woke up the next day, you did the same shit.
But did you die?
Exactly. And that's it. Like, is this going to kill you? And if it's, no, it's not. And the best thing about it is like, normally you come out of there with a story or like, hey, I guess I don't like to do that thing, or I'll do it again, but it'll be a different way. Or, there's things I don't like that I just do because my friends are doing it. I don't want to go to a fucking dance club, but it's going to be weird. And I'm with my friends and it's going to be like, I would never go on my own. You know what I mean? Like, that's not something that I would do.
Yeah.
But like, if everybody's going, I learned not to be one of those people who's like, no, I don't want to go to a thing because it's going to be bad. It's just like, it's 4 hours, you get drunk and you're fine.
Awesome. I thought there was a question slightly further up. I'm trying to find it. How does your view of your position then, as in back when you were depressed, change in comparison to how you feel thinking back to it?
How I look at it 3 years, like what I saw. I actually, it's kind of funny. I can say I definitely don't know who that person was then, because I was like, I'm definitely not the same person before those 3 years and after those 3 years. So that period of time sticks out for me in my head as like the worst I've ever been, because like I don't remember ever not giving a shit that much about anything, and also not trying to seek a way out of it. It was definitely the worst time of my life. But the one thing I can learn from it, I think, is that like that I can endure that again. Like, I'm not as like, I'm on the lookout for if that shit comes back again, and I know now what the signs are. So I'm, on one hand, I'm like kind of glad, because I mean, that could have come way later and I could have been at an age where maybe I'm not as adept to deal with it. But now it's like I can just kind of figure that out and manage that in a way. I'm like, hey, look, I survived it.
Yeah. Awesome. Was it different? So I suppose we sort of asked this question, but see if there's anything else in it that you want to touch into, which was, and this is from Mounty, your short-haired, shaven-faced counterpart.
My buddy.
Was it difficult having depression and being on stage doing comedy? How did you deal with that?
Yeah, it was, especially around that time, because dealing with it at that level was, I thought I was just over. Like, that was the one safe, I guess you can call it a safe space, but that was the one place where like nothing bothers you. Like, I've had the flu, like the worst flu I've ever had in my entire life, and done 4 shows, an hour long each. And when you're on stage, you don't feel a fucking thing. And then when I was off stage, I was like in the corner, drinking tea, shaking, fever. And then they'd be like, you're on. I'm like, bop, bop, whatever. My whole set is noises, by the way. But but it was, when it was affecting me that badly, that's when I wanted to give up. And I was like, okay, that's the end for me. If I can't tell jokes and do the thing I like, then fuck it. Yeah, that was hard. But like regular depression, like, I mean, like now if I'm just like in a bad mood or sad, the comedy helps. It's sometimes just nice to be in a room full of people and being able to make them laugh and get out what you're feeling and what you're thinking.
Awesome. Lindsay says, I have always wanted to do stand-up. I have BPD, which is borderline personality disorder, and the thought of traveling alone, etc., puts me off with my anxiety and BPD. How do you cope with that?
It is lonely. I did things in the hotel. I should probably fix that sentence. I did things in the hotel that I'm not proud of.
No, I want that sentence just on its own. I'm going to take that out of context and put it on Twitter.
Yeah, please do. If anybody
Breaking news: John Poveromo did things in the hotel room that he's not proud of.
I'll give you the list of the hotels you can go in with a black light and have fun. But I would just, you just do things in hotels to keep yourself busy. And like, I love to draw. So I wound up like making sure I had stuff to do. So I always brought laptops. Sometimes I would travel with a friend. A friend would come with me for the weekend. We get the room together. And on those occasions where I do have to be alone, I just, the high you get from being off stage kind of lasts. So just make sure you're getting rest and keep it going. Get yourself some food. Like I have a routine after I get off stage. I go get some great food that I like. I don't drink because that's a dead end. I go maybe to a movie. I find a movie I like in the area, or I bring one back to the hotel room or Netflix, thank God, or whatever. And I just get stuff I like, and I treat it like a mini vacation after the show. Mm-hmm. So that helps me cope with that kind of stuff, because it can be lonely, but it also can be. Like, remember when, like, I don't know if you were ever one of those kids who, like, your parents would go away for the weekend and you have the house to yourself. So you were just like, it was kind of scary, but at the same time, you were like, holy fuck, I can do whatever the hell I want. That's kind of it. So you watch dumb stuff. You have a bunch of snacks around you, make it a lot of fun. And also, I travel with an opener now. So who's one of my best friends.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you can make sure you travel with people.
Yeah, absolutely. Do what you can to make the environment more comfortable.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's how we look at it as well. Like I don't commute to anything right now. I'm literally work from this office, and I used to. One of the best things I ever did when I was commuting around was to find a way to hook my phone up to my car so that I could have podcasts on. And
nice.
And I would utilize that driving time as a way to kind of either learn something new or put something on that was good for my mind. And the same now, it's like actually that's one of the things I'm looking forward to. I used to go through a lot of podcasts, and I don't go through as many anymore. So when commuting comes back in again for me, which it can start. It actually starts next week. I'm going down to Mounties on Monday, but I've got work appointments from the next 2 weeks onwards that I actually have to start traveling for again, and I'm looking forward to having that time in the car now, whereas historically I might not have done.
Yeah. I also bring a Bluetooth radio, by the way, wherever I go to. Like I have this little Sony Bluetooth thing, and I just fucking blast music in the hood. Like I really do make it like it's my own little home away from home for a little bit. So just bring shit you like. Like you were a kid and you were going to a family friend's house for the weekend, and you brought like literally every one of your favorite toys, just fucking do that.
Yeah. Also as well, Lindsay, is feel free to include BPD and anxiety in your material. There's I always want to say Juliette Lewis, but that's the actress, isn't it? There's a UK comedian called Juliette Burton who I've been might be getting on the podcast soon, which would be quite nice. Her entire set. Well, the sets that I've seen anyway, or entire sets that I've seen, are all about her mental health and the various conditions, and it's empathizing and entertaining at the same time. It's very nice. Do you ever have imposter syndrome, and if so, how do you deal with it, especially with having to test jokes live to people?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing that Judy and I were talking about today too, is the imposter syndrome thing. That comes up. That's cyclical. There are times when I feel amazing, on top of the world, and great, and really proud of everything I've done. And then there are other times where I'm like, who the fuck are you? Like I do feel bad about that. I don't know. And that from what I've talked to other people about, like other comics and even musicians and shit like that, is that never goes away. No. That never goes away. Like I always think like, especially on social media and stuff, like I talk about issues that are important to me, and I get people who follow me because of those issues. And I like that, and that's fine. But then, of course, that's not who I am 24/7, and that's not what I think 24/7. So, same thing. And I'll get people who will unfollow me, or people who will, like be kind of bummed out. And it's like, I kind of want to just go, hey, look, this is what I think in general all the time. You know what I mean? I'm not who you think I am constantly. Like, I wish I was. That guy sounds great, but I'm just a piece of shit like everybody else.
Fair. Well, you're not a piece of shit.
I appreciate that.
We think you're awesome.
Well, thank you very much.
Maybe like at the very beginning, we had some of that sparkly unicorn poo. Maybe that can be it. But yeah, like imposter syndrome for me is it goes hand in hand with my bipolar disorder. It's really obvious for me because I'm either, when I'm elevated, I think I'm well, actually, let's go back to a piece of shit, okay? Like, when I'm elevated, I think I'm the shit. When I'm down here, I think I'm just shit. Can do no wrong, can do no good. And I flip between those, but it's kind of obvious for me. And one of the things I've really loved about kind of like, I only ever watched just kind of mostly just UK stand up and stuff before starting listening to Joe Rogan, And again, there's a person that if you want, and I don't think anyone on this face of the planet agrees with every one of his points of view, right? But he's the most listened to person on the face of the planet. And that's the thing. I sometimes sit and listen to the episodes and like, oh, well, you shut up talking about that. Like, you're just so far off the mark. But, right. I love the show because it exposes me to a bunch of people that there's no other way I'm getting those interviews. And I do actually quite like Joe's views on a lot of things. But
me too.
He basically was the first person that I ever heard talk about like stand up and how many hours you put in, how many shows you do a night, but also the difference between, he put it out, the difference between stand up and music is with a band, they can sit there and they can craft the song and perfect the song and stuff. And yeah, there'll still be tweaks that they'll make when they go out with the audience. But as a comic, until the transaction isn't complete until you put the idea out there and you see how the idea responds, it's responded to. And that to me is that's what I do as well. Like, it's not whether or not it gets a laugh, it's whether or not it gets an impact. I can have what I think is the best way of putting things in the whole world, and then I say it to people and it just comes back that there's no response, or I can say one little throwaway comment that I wasn't even planning to say or whatever, and people really respond to that, right? But it's the same as like that idea of putting in the hours, and a lot of people out there don't. This is why I've got a massive amount of respect for stand-up, because it's like you'll do like 3, 4, 5 shows a night if you can get. I mean, you coming from like that sort of New York, New Jersey scene, like there was obviously, there was the opportunity to do 4 or 5 10-minute slots. Like, I'm just going from club to club to club to club to club.
Yeah, in New York, you would just bounce around and go in a cab. You just hop in a cab, or if they were close enough, you just fucking walk to the other clubs.
Yeah, and like that's kind of like what my work ethic is for what I do as well. It's like I host 2 or 3 episodes of a podcast every week, but I say yes to practically everyone that asks me to be on a podcast, and it doesn't matter to me whether it's an audience of 2, an audience of 7. I don't even know what the audience is of a podcast. Obviously, we're hardly ever doing it live,
right?
But for me, it's an opportunity to kind of speak to another person, craft my speech, craft the message that I'm trying to do, see the bits that don't necessarily work or don't necessarily flow. Like, I prefer obviously doing them on video so I can see the person's response and stuff. But it's but that's the whole thing is, I know that when that imposter syndrome kicks in, that I can't let that stop me from putting anything out, because the fear of not putting it out will be the thing that will stop me. Yeah, and if I don't say anything, then I'll never get better.
Right. And also, like, you kind of learn that, like, maybe not, like, there's shows and stuff that I've had, whether they were podcasts or live shows, where I'm like, I felt like I sucked. I'm like, I fucking sucked. That was a terrible, I should not be doing whatever I'm doing. The imposter syndrome, like, you fucking suck. I don't know why you do this. And then that's not the perception the audience had or the listeners had. And they're like, and it's kind of funny, because I'm like, man, I don't see it, but I appreciate it. But taking all that into context, you go, like you said, I'm going to do this thing anyway. I don't feel up to it. It may go well. It may not go well. But once it's done, it's up to the audience to, say whether they liked it or not. And if they don't like it and I don't like it at the same time, I'm never like, how dare you? I'm like, you're absolutely right. I fucking sucked. Yeah. Hopefully the next one's better. I'm only human, and then the same thing, like you said, you like Joe Rogan, man. That's one of those issues that I constantly have with people because I do love Joe Rogan. And I don't think I know a couple of people who asked me recently about stand up and about going into comedy. And I was like, I said it and I don't know if they appreciated it because I gave them a bunch of advice they liked. And the other one was, I was like, please do not go into stand up to be culturally relevant or change anyone's mind. Go into it to be fucking funny first. Like if you wind up doing that later, if that's your natural groove, that's fine. But for the love of Christ, we don't need like I understand that to a certain extent, some people gravitate towards comedians or because they feel they serve a purpose. But I promise you that comedian does not feel like he serves much of a purpose. He wants to make people laugh. And if he makes a point, that point comes from a personal place and he's glad it resonates, but it's not something that they're dedicated to ad nauseum to like affect any kind of detrimental change. If it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. They're on to the next set. And I feel like people don't understand that. And I think that's why they think with Joe Rogan's like millions and millions of followers, why he's not more careful with what he says. And I think that drives me crazy because I'm like, he doesn't have to be. Just because he wound up being successful doesn't mean that guy has to stop being that guy anymore. Like he corrects himself, which I commend him. And if he didn't, then I'd probably hate him or just not like, I'd be like, oh, fuck that guy. But he does come back on and correct what he says and amend stuff if he's wrong and whatever. But it doesn't inhibit him in the conversation that he's having. It doesn't stop him from having conversations with people that other people may disagree with. I think we need to hear all of the conversations. And I think the good ideas will eventually beat the shit out of the bad ideas in the playground. I think that's how 90% of that works. I think never hearing them makes people ossified and homogenous, and it makes for a really bad, creatively bad society.
Yeah, it's like one of the things that he says, and I don't know if this is directly his quote or if he's got it from somewhere else, but it's the answer to bad speech isn't censorship, it's better speech. It's like if someone comes up this happened just before before you came on this evening, is someone tried to get me to wish his friend a happy birthday, and the friend's name, like it wasn't Mike Hunt. When you say it quickly, it's Mike Hunt, right? It was something that wanted me, that basically if I said the two words quickly together would have had me say the N-word. And thankfully I caught it because someone got me to say ice, wallow and come next to each other the other day. So it is easy to trick me into these things. But I think it was only down to the fact that this person did it like 4 times that I kind of like, oh, okay. And then when I saw the first 2, I was like, right, look, I'm going to give you an opportunity to play nice here. Yeah, I'm going to give you an opportunity to kind of like change your ways and see whether or not like you actually want to sit and actually have a discussion and learn about mental health or whatever. And then basically at the 3rd and 4th one came in, I was like, right, banned, you're gone. And the thing was, like, one of the chat was like, you were I can't believe you were going to give that person another shot. I'm like, well, the thing is, like what I actually said when I kicked him out was, look, racism ain't fun. You're not going to be doing it over here. It's not good. It's not okay. Go somewhere else, or actually even better, don't go anywhere else. Don't go anywhere else, because I know you're probably going to go off and do this. But ultimately, the way I see it is, if someone came into the chat using racist remarks, it's like it's better to actually invite that person to the table and discuss why that person should probably not be using that behavior, and maybe hopefully get that person have that person think about things differently, and that to me is that rather than just shouting at him, you're a horrendous racist, get off, they just go and be racist somewhere else. Now I'm not saying I'm going to bloody convert this person out of racism or whatever, but it's we had something a few months back when someone came in and said, I have good news to share, would you like it? And I was like, yeah. And it was the gospel. And I was just like, does that ever work? Because I'm going to guess I'm not the first stream you've done this to today. And I'm like, what's the response you get off this? It's like, I just think it's bizarre. Like when people, whatever response a person thinks, okay, I'm going to do this, what response I'm going to get. And that person's probably, that's probably worked a bunch of times. He's put that in a chat and the streamer has ended up saying the words and it's like he's tricked him into it. He probably thinks it's really, really funny, and it's just but it's like what, why, just why?
Yeah. And the funny thing is like talking to people actually does work sometimes. Like there was a couple instances where during the pandemic or whatever, I mean, I got so much hate for posting like basically supporting BLM stuff and all the my liberal agenda or whatever, but my opinion, you know, whatever, and jokes and stuff. And yeah, and then there's people who literally hate that I have a blue check mark on Instagram, which I think those people are hilarious. But I posted on some comment on some page, and some dude was like, "Fuck you! Why the fuck do you have a blue check?" Yada yada yada, like just spewing hate. And I normally don't respond, or I'll just laugh. But I was like, "Hey," I'm like, I messaged him, and I was like, "Hey, dude, are you all right?" And he's like, "Why the fuck are you messaging me? What do you mean, am I all right?" And I was like, "No, I genuinely asking." I said, "Because you seem to be far more upset that I have a blue check than anyone really needs to be." And I was like, "So I just want to know, are you okay?" And he was like, "That's fucking weird, bro. Like, I can't believe you even bothered to have the time." And I just kept doing it again. I was like, "I know, I understand. I understand it's weird. I normally don't do this. I normally don't give a fuck. I'm just saying."
You seem special.
Yeah, I said, "You seem wildly angry about this, and I just don't get it." And it was on some kind of, it wasn't even a political kind. It was like innocuous shit, right? But he just kept trolling my page after that and like, you know, whatever. And he was like, "Actually, no, I'm not okay." And blah, 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 blah. And like, he was having, like, he has a fiance. He was having financial problems. The pandemic sucked. And he's like, "It's just really hard being a white." He's like, "Everybody thinks, you know, just because you're a white guy, you're automatically racist." And I was like, "Well, first of all," I was like, you know, I was like, "I understand why you think that." And I actually just wound up talking to him. And now he messages me and sends me his paintings. And he's got a fiance. And he's like, "That was really cool of you to like, just like actually talk to me." He's like, "'Cause I was in a bad way." And I'm not saying this to like, but like, I'm like, it's funny how like most of these aggressors are just dealing with shit they don't know how to comprehend or deal with. And same way, I had a guy just a couple of weeks ago who was impersonating me on Instagram, which, by the way, there are richer celebrities to impersonate. So I don't like, and I'm not I just know I just tossed myself in there, but I'm not even that at all. But you know, the whole thing. So he, so I made another account and messaged him, and then wound up, or her, or whoever it was, or whatever, but actually wound up talking to them into admitting that they were a fake account. Because in the beginning they were like, "No, it's really me." And they were pretending to be me, and they were trying to get money out of me. And I was like, I just wound up talking to them for a while, like a couple days. And I whittled them down to going like, "I'm not really him. I do need this money." But yada, yada, yada. And I, you know, never gave them the money because obviously they're like from Nigeria or whatever. But I actually got them to delete the account and like admit that they were fake. So it's funny when you actually do wind up talking. Like, I'm for all mass communication because I feel like that's the better way to deal with stuff instead of trying to make people go away.
Yeah, I agree. Have you ever come across, I'll probably butcher the surname, James Veitch? He's a UK comedian. If you ever saw it, it'd have been the one where he had the rubber ducks in the bathroom and like had. This,
no.
And okay, but he also went through a period of anyone that tried to kind of email him with like a scam, he'd basically go all along with it and just like be like, you know, "When is this cash coming? When are we going to do this? What are we going to do? How are we going to meet at midnight and with a case and all of this type of stuff?"
Yeah.
And he basically put it down to, "Well, I'm going to waste these people's time so they don't have as much time to wait to try and scam you."
Yeah. When I finally got, well, I didn't set out to get this guy to admit he was fake, but I did want to know his process. And honestly, I was kind of jealous of who this guy thought I was. Because he was like, "Wow, I'm out in Norway filming a movie." And I was like, "I want to be out in Norway filming a movie." And I was like, "Interesting. I might pretend to be you because this is so much better than what I'm doing." So I was like, "Yeah, this guy made my life out to be fascinating." But then I wound up just breaking it down. It's kind of funny. But it is fucking weird.
There was one more question, which was, well, when you write in material, do you write it down old school or record it, and what's better?
I don't record it because I'm not. I don't like listening to stuff back. but I do write it down, and I write it down everywhere. Like if I showed you, like, I mean, I've got notebooks and papers all over the place, and also the notes in my phone. I mean, this goes back years, by the way, but I've just got I mean, they're endless. Wow. So any idea, premise, picture I see, I write stuff down, and then I work everything out on stage. But I do like writing down the idea of a joke or like a punchline or something I said funny to a friend. And then I'll go, oh, okay, that's actually a really good premise for a bit. Like I just thought of something the other day. It's probably, I don't know if it's going to be funny for you guys, but I don't know if you guys are big into like award shows or Oscars or shit.
We know of them.
You know of them. Okay, good. We
usually provide your hosts.
That is, wow, that was a good dig. That was very true. I'm kind of hurt. We get Chris Rock every now and again. But it was kind of funny because I was thinking about just the way they canceled the Golden Globes recently because the Hollywood Foreign Press are a bunch of assholes. And it's like, it's kind of funny that like slowly but surely all the white like movie stars have started taking game show roles as the progression of like the award shows became less important or relevant, to the point where now NBC is canceled, whatever. But the funny part is that like finally marginalized people are being recognized and winning Oscars, and now they're like NBC's like, ratings are too low, we're dropping that. And meanwhile, all the white celebrities, Hollywood celebrities, are moving towards fucking hosting game shows and shit. And it's like, now that's important. I'm like, great, now black people are gonna have to break into hosting game shows. Like it's just this endless cycle of like finally Daniel Kaluuya wins an Oscar, and they're like, you know what, next year we're not showing him. But Alec Baldwin's got a new Spin the Wheel show. So I'm kind of working on that kind of a theme now. But like,
I didn't even realize that was happening. Like, isn't like the game show hosts and all the rest of it? Is it game shows becoming popular again?
No, they're becoming financially secure. Like they're not even popular. I mean, popular in like that the American people will watch garbage and it's fine. But like in the sense that like you would never see anybody in movies. They would never be caught dead, let alone on TV. But because of Netflix and like HBO Max upping the level, like Game of Thrones level of stuff, and the CGI and the money being paid, movie stars transitioned over to TV. And then it became financially viable to do game shows because people watch garbage. But it's like, of course, a celebrity, like, all these guys doing movies are going to watch a game show. And because now it's just about money, and it's just about sustaining, whatever. And it's not about status, because the people don't, for some reason, give a shit about the Oscars anymore. And because they also made them fucking boring as shit. Because instead of letting Hollywood be the debaucherous fucking mess it is, they made them like, it's exhausting. It's like, this is why I say let entertainment be entertainment. It's so exhausting for me to watch the Oscars now and watch a bunch of rich, talented people feel bad about being rich and talented. Where they're like, yes, these are all, 1,400 carat diamond earrings, but I feel terrible about. Did you guys know about the whales or what? And it's like, fuck you. Just fuck on the goddamn carpet like we know you want to, and let us watch. And then we'll just go, like, you do your thing, and then we'll, like, it doesn't have to be this, because everybody's got a speech now, and it's just like, and they don't let comedians play at these places anymore. Like, they don't have a host because it's too dangerous. So, it's kind of funny that way.
Definitely. I mean, speaking of celebrities being unrelatable, did you hear about Gwyneth Paltrow hitting rock bottom during lockdown?
I know that poor woman. What did she say? She had bread.
She broke down and ate bread.
Celebrity life, man. Do you know what though? I kind of fucking respect her detachment. Like the level of audacity that takes to say she ate bread like a commoner. I'm like, good for her. If she can afford, like, obviously she's rich enough to, shove literally whatever remedy she wants into her vagina and call it like, a health product. So I'm going to pretend like bread's not devastating to her. Like, come on. Yeah, it's hilarious. I love that.
I was going to say, if only she'd have seen the outcome of sliding doors, where one way it goes where she eats bread and the other way it goes where she doesn't, right?
You know what's crazy though? Like, I like that. That shit should be funny to people, and it shouldn't outrage them because that's how it's just ridiculous.
It is funny.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But like people were like flipping out on Twitter, like, "Oh my god, like she should."
It's a weird one because like when I see that, I'm like, are people flipping out? Because there's people that flip out sarcastically.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's some people that do it like as a joke, and you can tell, and there's some people that are like, "Hang her at noon." You're like, holy shit. She's got a daughter.
But unless you know the person that's tweeting and you know their tweet history, it's like, I'm like, oh god, it's just too much. I need emojis. Come on, someone put some emojis in there so I can tell whether this is sarcasm or not, because I need tone of voice.
I know. Any kind of inflection helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else you want to add before I let you go on your merry way? Because I've already kept you for absolutely forever.
No, I don't think there's anything else I want to add. Probably by the end of this, I'm going to wish I had been better. So there's not. No, I mean, there's nothing else. I mean, I stress communication when you're sad or whatever, and not to, constantly deal with it on your own. Oh, you know what I would like to stress? I see this a lot. Which is, if you need help, call yada yada yada. Fuck that shit. Call your friends. Check on your friends, because if they're ever in that state, they don't think calling's going to help. They're not in a position to go, let me dial a friend, because if they are, they're fine enough to get it over it on their own. But just if you haven't heard from somebody in a while, if you think you know somebody well enough where they get into a deep depression, fucking shoot them a text, let them know you're thinking, give them a phone call. Call them. Don't wait for them to call you.
Yeah. Reach in rather than waiting for other people to reach out. And
also, please look up Dystopia Tonight on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, because, it's fun.
I will pop links into the chat as soon when
I appreciate
that. Where is the best place for people to find you and more about you?
JohnPoveromo.net, and Instagram is the main social media that I use. So if you follow me on there, it's just my name, John Poveromo. So follow me.
Wait a minute, is it Poveromo?
Yeah, it's Poveromo.
It's not Poveromo, as I've been saying it all these times.
Oh, it's fine. I mean, that's
not. Actually, you can wait a minute. You can see my surname on Zoom. How do you pronounce my surname? You'll never get it right.
Cottrell.
That was so close with an American accent. Yeah, because most Americans say Cottrell.
Oh, okay.
It's Dave Cottrell. But yeah.
He's on the boy version of Sex and the City. How do you say it?
The what?
How do you say it?
Cottrell.
Oh, Cottrell. Okay.
Very close to how you said it. Yeah, you said Cottrell.
I do what I can.
So Poveromo. I mean, to be fair, I spent my entire birthday calling you John Pomodoro, but
you did. I know that was
deliberate.
And it got progressively like more hilarious and worse as the drunker you got. So it was like it started out as doing it purposely, and then and then you were like, but you got really drunk.
Well, it was also hard because we all we had like Mark Riccadonna Kebab on at the same time. It's like why is everyone got like hard names?
So many Italian names. Wait, you know what I need? I need that dude who could beatbox. I need the clip of the theme song he gave to me, because it's so good and I don't remember what it is, and it's gone forever.
Probably. I can find it for you quite easily, because it quite often comes up on my stream, because I have something that replays clips, which means it's still there. So yeah, I could find that for you quite easily.
All right, cool.
I hope even if someone's not named it correctly. In fact, I'd be willing to put money on the fact that it's one of my most played clips, which means that if I go over here, I can probably find it for you right now, this is the content that everyone's came for. Is Dave browsing the internet. Yeah, but the reason I'm doing this is because if I don't do it now, I'll never remember. No, it's not in the top. It's not in the top 12 anymore. I'll be able to, it'll be not too far from that though. There's the one of me doing Mickey Mouse CEO, which was just to Mark and Justin. I think.
Yeah.
I think
I've
was
seen
in the
that
point
clip
where
though.
John Poveromo's theme tune. In fact, yeah, there it is.
Oh shit!
I've got the clip for it there. Yeah.
I can't believe it exists. I thought it was gone forever.
No, I will pop it in the chat box over here. Oh, that's going to ruin everything for the entire screen. There's the clip for you in the chat box on our Zoom.
on our Zoom. Great.
I need to
Thank
close
you.
the chat box now. Is that going to close the call though? I just want to get rid of
No,
the
I
chat.
don't think so.
Close. There we go. Now we're back on screen. And to anyone in the chat who wants to know what we're talking about, that's the clip. John Poveromo, not Poveromo, his theme tune. So yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you.
Also, if you go to a website called twitchguru.com and put that clip in there, it'll let you download it.
Oh, get the hell out of here. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, so you can turn it into a sound alert or just have it as your ringtone on your phone or whatever the hell you want to do with it.
Sweet. I love that. That's amazing. That was a fun. This is great, man.
It has. It's been absolutely amazing. It's been great to catch up with you, to learn a little bit more about it, and yeah. Also, by the way, everyone, I'm gonna plug this. John mentioned Dup It before. I believe it is also on YouTube. Go and do it. Yes. If you've got it on Prime, watch it on Prime, because there's probably some ratings on Prime's more important than ratings on YouTube. But it's very, very good. Not to give any spoilers away to anybody, but when you said earlier about when you open up to your friends and then you realize that they've all got that. Yeah, that's my favorite bit.
Oh, very nice. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And actually, if you watch it on YouTube, it has the original music I wanted in it. We just couldn't use it on Amazon Prime. So Amazon Prime has some like generic like guitar shit in the background, but YouTube has the songs I wanted in it. So, so I feel
cool.
like the YouTube
there you go.
one is
I'll drop a little link in the chat for that in a minute as well.
Thanks, man.
But yeah, thanks very much.